Hey, everybody, welcome back. Second half of our simulating a day as a Bethesda Game Studios developer, or a level designer specifically. So far, I'm having a pretty good time. Hope you all had a pretty good lunch break. I had a pretty good lunch break. I had sandwich and watched Markiplier play some Return to Bloody Nights or something like that. It's like a Five Nights at Freddy's fan game that was actually pretty good, pretty freaky. But yeah, that was pretty good, pretty fun. And yeah, we're back with more. And so our first thing that we're going to listen to is Todd Howard's 2022 DICE keynote, which I always enjoy. I'm going to finish cutting my fingernails real quick, and then we'll get back to it.
Thank you. I was told to stand in the magic circle. I feel like I should make a Skylanders joke or something right now. Thank you all for coming. Thanks for having me to DICE. I was able to speak here 3 years ago after Fallout 3, and because of Skyrim, this is actually my first DICE since then, and I always enjoy the keynote, so we'll see how this one goes since I'm giving it. If this goes really, really well, that's great. If it goes poorly, it's Ted Price's fault because he talked me into this. He has a way with words, excellent penmanship. He's much taller and more handsome than I am. And he said I would do great. So if it's terrible, thank you, Ted. I have been with Bethesda this is my 18th year. And so I got in the industry in '94. And when I started at Bethesda, this game had just come out, Terminator Rampage. E3 didn't exist yet, so we had CES, and we were in a tent. The video games were in like a big tent with the porn. This was my first experience in the industry. I have made a terrible mistake. Oh, there's Blizzard's booth. They're closer to the porn than we are. It's probably all fine. This game had come out, and at this time, we had made the games. We literally would box the games in the basement of the building, and Radio Shack returned like all 6,000 copies they bought of Terminator Rampage because they did a spot check, and they were different numbered discs. They weren't the right discs. Came out like 8 floppy disks. We had to open every copy of Terminator Rampage and make sure it had the right discs and repackage them up. You look how far we've come. I know you all remember this game because this game came out right around the same time. And so nobody remembers Terminator. And this was the first game I did at Bethesda, first full 3D, mouse look, and then this thing came out, and like nobody. And I've made a lot of games since then, and if you don't know, we then bought id recently, like a few years ago. So, it's like, just stop messing with us. We'll just get together. Carmack had a few requests. One, he could still have lunch with his rocket and get paid in golf checks, and we worked that out. And so now we are studios together. So those of you, Becca asked this question a lot. So Bethesda Softworks, Bethesda Game Studios, there are a number of studios that are published by Bethesda Softworks. id Software, ZeniMax Online is our online studio that started many years ago, working on a project that hasn't been announced yet. Arcane Studios, who you know from Dark Messiah of Might and Magic. They're currently working on Dishonored that's been announced. Tango Studios in Japan, Shinji Mikami's studio, is most well known for Resident Evil. And Machine Games, which is a studio that was started by a lot of the principals from Starbreeze Studios. So they're all part of ZeniMax, and we are published by Bethesda Softworks. So I work for Bethesda Game Studios, the internal dev studio, and we're published by this, and we're also part of ZeniMax Media. Bethesda Softworks is part of ZeniMax Media, which also has divisions in Europe and Asia, and then these. What's weird is ZeniMax is actually a Delaware corporation, which is the same as Activision as EA, which asks the question, what is up with Delaware? Who runs Delaware? Joe Biden, who is almost like the ruler of the universe. So this is what the talk is actually about.
What's up, Alex? How you doing?
I was told to give it a title, so I wanted something fairly generic that I could do anything with. But the gist of this, and what's on my mind a lot, is what is special about games? Why do we create them? Well, why do we play them? Why do our players enjoy them so much? What is special about them? What is special about creating games? Is this a game? Like our parents see when we were growing up, well, that's, is it a game, a toy? Is it a game like chess? Is it some weird combination of Light-Bright and chess? They see a game, and it's no different than a toy often. You look at, say, Robotron. This is interactive Light-Bright. So is it a toy? Is it a game? Is it entertainment? A lot of people say, how should I look at gaming? Is it like a movie? Is it like this? And I see games as a creator as the ultimate combination of art and technology. You could say this about movies as well. Like a lot of movies use a lot of high-end 3D or things like that, but there's something special, I think, about, okay, don't take all night to render a frame. Do it 30 frames a second on a consumer device and make it fun. What is fun? And even the type of technology, software development, is a very different kind of development. John Carmack told me a great anecdote. He builds rockets, as you know, and he's a rocket scientist. I said, John, rockets, that must be really hard. He said, programming a rocket is way easier than a game. It goes too far left, thrust right. It's not a problem. The game crashes, and I just reset the Xbox. The difference with rockets is the rocket crashes, and there's a mess spread out over several miles, and that makes developing rockets a lot harder. It's these two disciplines coming together, and this is an image we use in the team, so it's not just the two disciplines coming together, it's the people you have on your team working together. I showed this slide last time I talked to Dice, and there'll be some things that I will show again because we haven't changed how we do some things. Our way of looking at games is still pretty much the same as it was 3 years ago. We like this so much that we did our own image that does say nice in dragon language. Okay, we are werewolves and dragons high-fiving. That's how we should work together. And this is one of our big rules, which is the plan that you have is not important as your culture. So you see a lot of game makers will say, well, here's the big schedule, here's everything we're going to do. If they're really trying, they're going to run into problems. And those problems are solved by the culture you have on your team. The same goes for your design, okay? Your ideas are not as important as your execution, okay? So you have the best design, but when you play it, how well can you pull off that idea? That really is what's key. We have 3 big rules of game development on our team at Bethesda Game Studios that we use when we create them. I'm going to back my way through them. Number 3 is define the experience. Don't define your game by a list of features. Define it by the experience you want the player to have. And in the kind of games that we create, that experience is be who you want and go do what you want. This is a better design for Skyrim than some giant list of features of all things you can do. This gives you a feeling, and it conjures up things in your own mind of who you would be and what you would do and where you would go. And the game rewards exploration. Looking at how, this is a review of Skyrim, how people see your game. What are the things they pick out and say, well, that's what's important. What's very interesting about this review is I actually changed a word of it. I changed the words arena to Skyrim. It appeared in PC Gamer number 1, 18 years ago. So that review is about the first Elder Scrolls. Okay, so the experience of that franchise is still the same through all of the games. And you take a look at Arena and how we sort of look at the franchise over time and how we want to develop it. Our team has worked on it for a very long time. Arena sort of takes place in this giant world. It's just a big open thing. It takes every province of Tamriel, our fantasy world. Daggerfall in 96 focuses more on the character, your player character. Morrowind in 2002 starts, we get more into hand-building the world. How can it be more real? Oblivion in 2006, we start looking at the AI of the characters around you and what can we do. And it's easy to look at Skyrim and say, well, it's that with dragons. But that's not what it was. And these slides date back to, I don't know, 2007 when we first started the project. Is what is the overall for Skyrim is that we are going to tie all these together. That your experience, what you do here is going to affect this, and this is going to affect this, and all these things are going to feel like they're in a more believable world because they can react. We're going to have the story system that looks at what you're doing and gives you new things to do. Dragons are like a, you know, that's a very specific gameplay feature, not an overall flow of a game. This actually was one of the original designs of Skyrim. What is the experience of Skyrim? I bought this Conan action figure like years ago. It was just sitting on my desk. People would say, you know, so what are we doing for the next Elder Scrolls? And I would point to the figure. Ironically enough, for the longest time, dual wielding was not in the game. And I would just look at the figure and he'd say, do it. You know you want it in the game. We start a lot with the world. So we design a lot, how does the world feel to enter it? It has to feel like a place that isn't all cold and snowy. It's a place you want to explore. So these are the initial kinds of designs that we do, as opposed to sitting down and saying, this is how every feature is going to work, and here's our blueprint. This is the game. This is what it feels like. This is what it feels like. We did this very early. This is like a tone setter. What is the tone to us? What is the tone internally when we look at the game? How are we going to speak to everybody outside? How does the game feel? It's a very bold image that we did early on. This epic reality of the world of Tamriel, a place that could be built today on Earth, but feels fantastical. And these special ruins, how they tell their stories. This is Alduin's Wall in the game. How many here people have played? Have you played Skyrim? Because I use a lot of Skyrim references and assume. All right, good enough. I'll assume things that you might know or not know. You know, we would render this in full detail to say, like, well, okay, how do they tell their stories over time? When it came to dragons, we had a very short design. It's how do dragons feel? They feel like this. And then we had a team that worked on dragons, and they just kept iterating and adding things. And you know, can we have them land? Do they fly? Do they get hurt? How do they roar? How do they talk? You know, this is a better design for how dragons end up in the game than a giant list. This was a marketing image we did that does bring it all together. This is how the game feels. Second rule of game development we use, keep it simple. This one's, you know, everybody uses this. But even doing anything you have in your design, to do it well is going to take far longer than you think it will. One of the things we tell people on the team is we can do anything, we just can't do everything. So we have to pick our battles. And the thing with a role-playing game is that you can have any feature in a role-playing game, right? There's no, like, can I get married? Can I have kids? Can I drive a car? Can I start a football game? Can I take over the world? Maybe, yes, I don't know. There's nothing you would leave off the table in our kind of game. This is our number one rule, which is great games are played, not made. You have to play your own game a ton. We have about 100 people on the team at Bethesda Game Studios. Believe it or not, we did not focus test Skyrim at all. It was just us. We did some internally, but I mean going out and saying, how does it work? Do we think this will fit? We play our own game a ton. Everybody does it every week, starting very early. We have a certain way we give feedback on the team. How do we go through that? The artists in our project, I mean, I would say for the last, I'm going to make up some facts here. For the last 6 months of the project, all they do was play the game. Unless they got a bug, they're sitting there playing the game and we should do this, we should do this, we should do this. And it's very easy to say to do that, but it's very hard when the feedback is, this doesn't work, right? We must stop. You have to look at the signs, or it gets really, really terrible. You say, well, and then people get upset. Like, and I'll go by, and like, you need to change this. I don't want to do that. And I'm like, you listen to me. You need to change this. And you have to, emotion plays into this. It's all fine. Everybody has an opinion. You say, this was a mistake. You know, mistakes. Correct your mistakes. So this is generally how people put games together, and we do this as well. You spend a lot of time designing, you're like, great, you can all read it. And we want to shift that. We want to shift that balance where we're playing our games sooner. Get to that point faster. Everything after that is opportunity time. That's where the good stuff mostly happens. So you want to maximize your opportunity time to take advantage of things. And this is actually a slide from a team. We would meet every month, the team. This slide is from May 2010, so a long time ago in the middle of production. And we would remind ourselves this is what opportunity time is. And then here are examples from May 2010. What are we doing with giants? Giants are fun in Skyrim. We weren't using them a lot, so we're ticking them up. We should use them more. Dragons fighting on the ground was a new thing then. They were originally just going to fly around. They're great. We should do that more. We had a system, when you kill guys and it plays back, it's partly borrowed from VATS from Fallout 3, and it was called Cinekill on this date. We kept changing the name every month for fun. My favorite name was Violens. So, it wasn't working well. Are we going to do this? Let's stop working on it for a while. Let's work on kill moves some more. People like those in the team better. Are we doing favors and friends? I won't go into too much detail here on this, but we had a whole system, kind of almost like The Sims, that really showed you could give people gifts and do all this stuff, and it would track them, and there would be a bar above everybody's head, and how you stood with everybody, and it just became like, what is the point of this? It's still in the game. It's just behind the scenes, and it decides what quests they give you. But there's a very large system for that. We actually just say we need to step away from this. So question marks for the team at the time are we doing this? The skills menu, which I'll show you some. We wanted to tick up on that. Horses were a big question mark. And it's a very good example. We call it putting things in the spotlight. So you can have a feature, take horses. We're going through the project, and we don't know, oh, look, how much time are they going to take? How polished are they going to be? Are they adding to the game? Do we like them? Should we cut them? And we sort of call it, well, let's take it out of the spotlight. Let's add to dragons. Push the dragons into the spotlight as a feature. Let's do more with them, even if we have to cut stuff, because they're great. Let's take the horse, take baby, put her in a corner, put the horse in the corner. So like easy things we could have done that were debates. Can the horse carry your stuff? It's actually very easy for us to make a horse in Skyrim carry your stuff. Well, why didn't we do it? We didn't do it because it would have made them too important. It would have pushed them more toward that spotlight, and then all the negatives of horses, the player would have felt more. Well, they act like this on rocks. You can't fight on them. It does this, this, and this. So we kind of take some things. There are things we'll cut, but there are also things we'll push out of the spotlight and say, well, let's make that a fun diversion. Player's going to get it. This was a design I did. This was this original skills menu design. So I drew this on a guy's whiteboard. I have a lot of photos I send to people. I'll draw on the whiteboard, take a picture on my iPhone, send it to him, and go, that's what it's like. And I'd wanted to use the constellations from Arena. So like, so how's the skill system in Skyrim? It's like, well, you're going to look to the heavens. What does that mean? Well, we'll have the skill tree. And so we iterated on lots of ways. How are we doing a skills menu looking to the heavens? And at the time, we were using like the old Elder Scrolls burst signs, and they were going to have perk trees. And this is just like, it's really a list of numbers. But how can we make it entertaining or give it other meaning? And we went round and round. It's a very hard thing to crack. This is where we ended up. And what's interesting here is the perk trees are the skills themselves, not the original constellations. And the original constellations became the stones you find. So we're kind of drifting our way, like, hey, what feels right to us? Well, here's the original intent. How can we get that on the screen and to the player in the vibe that we want? And just how it moves became a big thing. And this is a good example of, as you're playing your game, you do find the things that the player's going to do a lot. So anything the player does a lot, regardless of what it is. I'm going to go to a menu and check my skills. Well, trick it out, man. Find a way to make that entertaining. Don't just assume that because they're going to do it a lot or it's simple that you shouldn't. So we spent a lot of time doing this and making it parallax and how you fly through the sky. It's probably one of the more successful examples of taking something that's a repetitive action and simple and making it something more. We also look at our game in layers. So when you're looking at any game, and everybody here plays a lot of games, you play a game and you say, if they had only, you feel this layer of, I don't know what to call it. At work, I think we have named this the egg of truth, though this is a stupid name, so I don't know what we call it. But you just feel this layer of if they have just done this, there's this other game underneath. The problem is when you're developing a game, that layer of muck is so big, I cannot see through this. How do you look at the game inside of there? And that's the trick when you're doing all of this. Something else that I notice happening amongst our group and throughout the industry is dev teams are getting more experienced. So the experience level on any dev team is going up in comparison to the games that are coming out. So we have found that we can have a lot less structure. We're getting more ninjas on the team, guys or women who can do a lot of stuff. And we let them run wild. And we're getting a lot of features and giving them the keys to the creativity and saying, well, make something cool. Here's the vibe. Here's what we want. In general, if you look at the games that are really successful, I think that are coming out well, they're coming from teams that have worked together for a while. I think that are able to do more of this. One of the ways that we did this is when we were done with Skyrim, we do what we call a game jam. Everybody on the team gets to do whatever they want for a week. And they can imagine. But you have to put it in Skyrim. Okay? One of the coolest things about being in one of those studios within Bethesda and ZeniMax is every year, every December, all the studios get together and we have a big company-wide meeting and everybody shows their stuff for the year. So, you know, getting to see what id's working on all this stuff early is great. Since we had just finished Skyrim, this year we showed the game jam stuff we did. So I'm going to show you the sizzle video from the game jam that we did internally, that we showed internally. That's what this video was from. So I need to, everyone on the team says I have to preface this with, this is all experiments that we did in a week. How much of this stuff sees the light of day? To be determined. Could it be in a future DLC? We don't know. Could it be various parts of it just be released for free? We don't know. But I wanted to show it to you because it gives you a good look at what do we do? We let people run wild and just see what they do for a week.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow on the knee.
Just a few more hours and I can crawl under some fur and take an arrow in the knee.
I could stick around and get along with you. Hello, oh, oh, oh. It doesn't really mean that I'm into you. Hello, oh, oh, oh. You're alright, but I'm your darling to enjoy the party. Don't get too excited, cause that's all you'll get from me. Hey, yeah, I think you're cute, but really you should know. I just came to say hello.
I'd be a lot warmer and a lot happier with an arrow in the knee.
My cousin's out fighting dragons, and what do I get? An arrow in the knee.
Been too long since we've had a good arrow in the knee.
You come up to me, fists raised. You're looking for an arrow in the knee.
Olalegagen.
I could stick around and get along.
Yo, Toshu,
Hello, oh, oh, oh.
Isla Nus.
Try now.
That I'm into
说唱。
You're alright, but I'm here, darling, to enjoy the party. You're alright, but I'm darling, to enjoy the party. You're alright, but I'm here, darling, to enjoy the party. You're alright, but I'm here, darling, to enjoy the party. You're alright, I'm darling, to 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 the party. I just came to say hello.
So that, am I back on? All right. Anybody heard what I was doing while you were watching that video? No, yeah? All right. So we did the game jam, so that everybody on the team was really excited. And like I said, all the studios get together. John Carmack was like, "You want to see what I did last week?" I was like, stop doing this to me." And this is absolutely real. It's like, I shot a rocket into fucking space. He didn't say F. I was like, we made a guy ride a dragon down there. Shot a rocket into space. The player experience ramp. So, I'm gonna change the subject a little bit. So this is actually more of the pure design. Okay, you're looking for things that are wrong in your game. You're trying to look through, but what is the thing down there? How do people actually experience your game? What are the stages they go through? And there's 4 of these. The first one is they learn your game. And this is the hardest kind of part where they don't feel completely comfortable. People don't really like learning and getting that part of your game right. Making the learning, I feel very uncomfortable. I put your game in, I don't know what's going on. Making that part entertaining is extremely difficult. After that, they're just playing. Okay? They've understood your game, they're just playing around. They don't have fear of dying. Okay? They then get challenged later on, once they've played around for a bit, and now they start feeling this, well, maybe I'll die. And as long as you've got to give them enough tools to win, everybody likes to win. Okay? And then you can surprise them with something new. Surprise the player after all you've done all that. And this whole thing repeats itself. So this is actually, as opposed to being, it's a loop. So this is an on-ramp to the following loop, okay? I think that, I've talked about this somewhat before. And I think traditionally the gaming industry, because developers like to impress other people on their team, they tend to focus on the challenge and surprise part. Look what I did, this is really hard, or this is, and not as much on the learning and playing. But I think as an industry, it's gotten significantly better. People, I think, that do the loop really well. Like good examples of the loop. Valve is really good at the loop. Blizzard, think about StarCraft 2 and that stuff, like really good at that loop. How you're learning and getting new stuff. Great example, Half-Life 2. When you get the gravity gun. Okay, I got a gravity gun, this is cool. Oh, you literally are playing around with the dog robot. And that's what you want to do. You want to have a good loop here. The one that we still get wrong, why do people put down games? Because the challenge part is off for them, okay? It either isn't enough, so they get bored, or it's way too hard, they get frustrated. That's right, way too often, it's the frustration one. And that's why people, that's why gaming as an entertainment stops a lot of people. I just got frustrated, I didn't get it. Movies don't, rarely do you hear a movie, like, did you like Saving Private Ryan? I couldn't get through the part in the rain. It's just too hard. It doesn't have, this is the cinematic Private Ryan. Multiplayer games are even worse, okay? I get online with Call of Duty. Here's the cinematic experience of me getting online and what I hear when I play Call of Duty.
Do you know how easy this is for me? Do you have any fucking idea how easy this is? This is a fucking joke. And I'm sorry you can't do this. I really am, because I wouldn't have to fucking sit here and watch you fumble around and fuck it up.
That's me. You know, it's very, do I want to keep playing this? That was not, my incentive level has dropped dramatically. So getting that challenge part right, I think is the key, and doing the whole loop right, so people keep playing your game. The question is, how does story play into this? I mean, this loop is it's just gameplay I'm talking about. You know, how do we look at story? Story gives you context and propels you through those loops. How should you feel about what you're doing? Here's an example. Gameplay snippet from Dead Island. I think what's interesting about that clip, you know, it's a piece of gameplay. But what if you set that against the trailer, the fabulous trailer they did, the mood and story of that trailer? So I did an experiment. What if you play them simultaneously? How does it change how you're feeling about the action on the left side of the screen? Completely different tone to the gameplay, same gameplay that you were seeing. Take that a step further with what we do. So you can look at movies or other forms of entertainment, much like Martin was saying. They're generally, you know, linear experiences. Most games are as well. What do we love about games, and what do we try to do the most? Is let the player control the loop. Maybe he's playing around, he wants to learn. Maybe he wants to go here. Maybe he wants to do that. Maybe he wants to go here. So in a game like Skyrim or Fallout 3, whatever we've done, we give the player a lot of credit. We trust him. We give him all these tools and we teach him this stuff. And he's an excellent player director. He wants downtime, he goes to town and talks to people. Says he wants a challenge, I'm going to go fight that dragon I heard about. It becomes much harder to put the game down. He is the director of his experience. This is a moment when you step out in Skyrim. So you do the whole character generation part, you come out of the early town. And this, you'd be surprised how much time we spent designing this step out moment, okay? Generally, we feel the player's going to trust us, whichever way he wants to go. But the key here is the guy who steps out with you, all right? And we actually iterated on how he actually said the words, okay? We want in that moment, look, you can go do whatever you want. It's all going to be fine. If you're ready for it, just go do what you want. But if you're not, follow this guy. And how he said the words, you should come with, no, you shouldn't come with me. No, maybe if you want to, like, it was just terrible. And I was working with the designer, like, come on, he needs to break up with you better. Like, it's not you, it's me, we should go, but if you want to come, we'll be friends, all right. And we just went through this and through this. And so it's written that he basically says, you go on, I'll go my way, you go your way. But we know a lot of players, they're not ready for the play challenge part. They want to learn. So he takes off, and if you follow him, he goes down and he waits, is he ready yet? And if you follow him, he then goes, okay, he's with me, and starts doing all this stuff. So we're looking for that initial, how is the player going to experience this, and designing around it. You take all that a step further, and you talk about story being the context for stuff. What's great about this is people it creates their own story. And that's, you know, one of the ultimates for us. We ask people their Skyrim experiences, and they're telling us things that we didn't write that story. We didn't even, you know, tell us more. It's really, really interesting to hear everybody's experience. This is Jens Matthias. He is one of the principals at Machine Games, the ex-Starbreeze guys. And for our holiday video that we did for the company, we had a lot of people talk about their experiences playing Skyrim or other games. And Jens had a great Skyrim experience that he recorded, and I asked if I could share that I love.
I bought this house in Riften. Beautiful house, I love it. It's just awesome. The first thing I did was just take all of this stuff out of there, and I'm just gonna fill up the whole thing with skulls. The only problem is that there's some weird stranger living in my house, and I can't get rid of her. She talks all the time. She's coughing. I'm trying to, enchant some cool stuff, and she's like yawning and sighing. And so I take her out into the forest, and I tell her, "Okay, I'm sorry, we have to part ways now." And she goes, "All right, I'll see you back at the house." I have a bear attack her. She kills the bear. I lure her into this dungeon of enemies. She survives. She shows up back at the house. Then I try to drown her. Finally, I take her to a giant, and I have her attack the giant, and the giant clubs her. She flies, into the sky. She still survives, shows up back at the house. I really want to get rid of her.
So I was like, well, that's great. The next sort of step in this, you have the player doing it he wants. He's telling his own stories. But then we allow them to also modify their game now. Okay, and just yesterday we released with our friends at Valve the Steam Workshop. So now on Steam, on the PC, they can download our tools, they can create their own mods, and they just stream into the game. Something we spent a lot of time on that we're really excited about. Our PC audience really, really engaged. I mean, all the players of Skyrim are, but there are over 10 million people have played the game so far, which is amazing to us. Multiple millions of those are on the PC. We've done really well. And with Steam, we get to see all the stats. Of those millions of people on the PC, the average playtime is 75 hours. That's what I said. Pretty amazing. And it's something we'd like to see come to consoles one day. But you get this thing where it's not just the game doing its thing, but now they can take it and change it and make it their own. We just did this with Valve.
Shout, here's a shout. I'll teach it to you. Go, smash.
So now we're messing with our game with Valve, which is a lot of fun. That's one of the mods you can download. Really fun. So gaming. It's the ultimate combination of art, technology, and then allowing the players, the person receiving that, to be their own director, to change it around. But I think there is still something more to gaming. It's something that gaming can make you feel that no other form of entertainment can feel. Like, what is fun? Like, what is that nugget of fun? Most entertainment can give you lots of emotions, but what is the emotion that games can give you that nothing else can? And it's pride. Pride in what you did. This is me 10 years ago. This is 10 years ago. I have just won the national championship in NCAA football on my PS2. It's one of my favorite games. So this picture is I love it. I play it every year, and I win the national championship, and I am the man once a year. It's the same emotion as this, right? Very real emotion, same picture. I am not wearing a hat, but other than that, is pretty much the same picture. And you can design for this. How people feel when they have accomplished something themselves in your game. There's this feeling of pride that nothing else in entertainment can give you. And you can design for this moment. Even simple things, puzzle games. My favorite sort of ego-stroking design to make you feel great moment in any game is Peggle. Everybody here played Peggle? Have you finished a level? If you haven't, all levels end this way. I'm pretty great. I think I'll play another level. I feel good right now. How do you all feel? You feel good? Here's another great one, just with sound. I haven't heard that as much as other people, but it is the Modern Warfare level up sound. To feel good, I attach it to Outlook when I send mail. That's right, I replied. You could take a lot of these things and take something like the old Robotron. Can you take something like that? Can you give it good story context? Can you give it a sense of pride when you accomplish? You can. You can do this with anything.
Take care of our kids.
You got nothing to worry about.
There you go. It's putting the player in that sweet spot. Get those things right. You put the player in that sweet spot with that pride, and the way they feel about your game and what they're doing, it makes it the greatest. When you're making your own game, this also goes to development, right? You want to put yourself in that spot. You can see, dev teams maybe who struggle. They're getting frustrated. They've challenged, they're doing something that's not working, they're getting frustrated, their game isn't coming out, it comes out not what they wanted. Or you've played games where you can tell these guys were bored, right? They just mailed it in. Finding that sweet spot when you're making your game and pushing yourself, that feeling of pride is also real. Because we've been given a great opportunity making these games. And I think, looking back of the industry over the last year, one of the big things I think, and I want to salute the folks from the ESA here, the Supreme Court ruling on what games are. The first, it's been 60 years since movies got that protection. Now video games have that protection from the Supreme Court. Are games art? My favorite thing written on this, New York Times, Seth Chazelle wrote this article. If you haven't read it, you should read it. It says this: it's now law that video games are art. And the courts ruled that it's up to us, up to the people in this room, to show the world what art we can produce. Can we put ourselves in that sweet spot? Can we put the players in that sweet spot? Like Martin said, this is the golden age of gaming. Everything is successful. Every platform, every price point. It's on Facebook. Handhelds, it's everywhere. Someone makes a killer app from a nav system in my car, I will play it. It'll probably be successful. Success is everywhere. I'm known for saying install base doesn't matter. If it did, we'd all make board games because there are a lot of tables. There's something very special about what we do. Again, do something great and you will find success. Make the player proud when he's playing your game. Make yourself proud that you made it. Make your player proud that he bought it. And let's all realize where we're at now with this industry and take advantage of the opportunity we have in creating what I feel is the world's greatest form of entertainment, video games. Thank you.
Hello and welcome back to GameSpot.
Hey everybody, Ryan McCaffrey with IGN. This is IGN Unfiltered, my monthly or so interview series where I have the privilege of sitting down with the best, brightest, most interesting minds in the games industry. Today is a first. It's the second appearance on IGN Unfiltered.
Oh wait, we need the first appearance.
What's happening, friends? Welcome to another episode of IGN Unfiltered, our monthly interview series where I have the pleasure of sitting down with the best, brightest, most interesting minds in the games industry. And this month, we've brought the show remote. We've traveled far. We're out here at Bethesda Game Studios in Rockville, Maryland, with the great Todd Howard, the Todd Father, the man behind the Elder Scrolls series, the Fallout series, and all kinds of new stuff you guys are cooking up. Todd, thanks so much for inviting us. This is
Thanks for
great.
coming out. It's been a long time in the making when you first brought this up.
Yes, you used to call in to my OXM podcast
Good
back
times.
in the day. That
Yeah.
was fun back in the Oblivion and Fallout 3 days. We'll get to all that, but you've had a heck of a career all here. And that's one thing I find super fascinating about you. So, I want to dig into that, but I always like to, of course, start at the beginning. And it's what you fell in love with RPGs pretty early on, right? Wizardry and Ultima was a big one for you.
The Ultima series was kind of the first time where I was a kid who grew up with video games like everybody else. Who, I think grew up in the '70s, but Ultima was the first time where I played something. You played D&D, where that kind of experience translated. Where I felt like I could do a lot of things in the world, despite it being whatever 16 pixels or 8 pixels by 8 pixel tiles. It felt very real for the time that I was in the game. I would go to bed thinking about it, and how am I going to finish this quest? And really just captured my imagination in terms of this is something that I really, really want to do.
There seems to be, I've noticed in doing 30-something episodes of this, there seems to be a pretty high correlation with game developers and tabletop D&D.
I think that's true
right?
for whether it's not just gaming. I think a lot of people then D&D. It's that time period, right? When I might have the years wrong. 1976 to 1985. That period of like D&D and science fiction movies and fantasy and all of that, I think was a big stepping stone from where entertainment was a decade before.
So you mentioned Ultima being big for you as a kid. How old were you back when you first remember getting into games?
I was probably 6 or 7. I wrote my first game when I was 12.
Nice.
What
was that?
Trash
Do you
80.
remember it?
There was a Star Trek game on the Trash 80, and then I did a ripoff of it called Shotgun.
The TRS-80 is the Trash 80?
That's what everyone called it. And then the Apple II came out soon after. And then once I got my hands on one of those, I was very much a self-taught Apple II programmer. And I could really, I could make that thing do pretty much whatever I wanted. And that's when computers started coming into classrooms.
Right.
And, I wouldn't suggest I was a great student. I wasn't a terrible student, but in computer class, I was, I was in my own element. Yeah.
What were your favorite games on Apple II?
Well, Ultima, obviously. Prince of Persia came out.
Yes.
Karateka. I used to say it called Karateka, but I understand it's called Karateka. And that was the first game where it has cinema-style cutscenes and all of these things. And I liked then that I could mess with them. If you knew assembly language or hex editing, then you could go in and mess with the games that I couldn't do on a Atari or ColecoVision or those kind of things.
So I imagine you've since gotten to meet Jordan Mechner and Richard Garriott.
I have. Actually, it's one of the great kind of, and that's a weird thing where you go to these things and then, Richard Garriott sent me a thing after I got in the Hall of Fame, and that's like where you go like, is this real? Is this, he's fabulous. One of the most amazing creatives our industry has had.
He's been to space.
He has, and back from Russia, and they land. The thing I love there is they don't land in the water; they land on the ground. They have just big springs or something.
So was it a case of? It sounds like it wasn't a case of never meet your heroes. Like it was a cool experience.
I met him a few times, so there was a hero moment. Probably when I first started here. So this would have been 25 years ago, or when he was doing Ultima 8. I met him for the first time, but then we met over the years, and he's been out to QuakeCon. He gave his space talk there.
Nice.
We met at an event a few months ago in DC as well.
So you mentioned already you're messing around with games. You're starting to toy with programming and making stuff. Did you ever want to be anything else when you grew up besides a video game developer?
Wanted to be? No. I thought about going into movies. I actually have a finance degree only because seemed like the easiest way to get through college at the time. And I actually interviewed at Circuit City because their headquarters were nearby where I went to college at William & Mary.
Yeah.
And they turned me down for the job. And I was like, all right, that was done. I don't know why I was doing that anyway. And we're at Circuit City today, so there's that.
Yeah, you made the right choice.
Yeah, exactly.
Clearly.
And I was like, well, I'm gonna chase this video game thing. I'd rather do that and see where it goes. But at the time, it wasn't a career that you would choose wisely. You know, you're looking at 93, 94.
Yeah.
And my parents were sort of, are you sure you want to do this?
Finance seems like an odd, like not even like computer science or.
Well, what happened was I did computer stuff on my own, but they wouldn't let me jump ahead in those courses. So I kept doing it on my own. I kept programming and making my own things. And I took one computer class just to up my GPA some,
Right.
I think. Just to like,
Just pad
okay,
the stats.
I'll just jump in, give me the A. But they wouldn't let me jump, to the 300 level courses or whatever.
That seems
But
a
this was
little
a long
short-sighted,
time ago, right?
Yeah.
So I think today it's very, very different, where programming and those kind of things in college, it's pretty ubiquitous.
Yeah, because so finance, and then you double majored engineering too.
I did some. I don't actually. You're probably reading it off my Wikipedia page.
Little research, some of which may involve Wikipedia.
Like not factually correct on that one.
We may want to we'll fix that after the interview.
Sure, yeah.
It's the beauty of Wikipedia. We can go fix it.
But I almost had a minor in art, so I was interested in art as well. So when it came to the gaming, it was a lot of graphics programming as well. How could I get these things to work? So it was a mix of business school, art stuff, and then programming on my own.
So were your parents rooting? They were probably, it sounds like they were happy with the finance degree, like, great, he'll get a good job, he'll be fine.
What? They were great in supporting me and saying, hey, whatever you want to do that really inspires you and makes you happy, go do that.
Yeah.
And the rest of it will work out. Don't chase a job for money, which I think is the best advice.
What do they think of your success now?
They didn't quite get it for a long time. They generally thought that I was a professional goof-off. And I don't think it was until other people mentioned it to them. When other people would say, hey, I saw Todd in this thing, or they would run into somebody and they'd say, oh, my son makes video games, and they'd go, oh, what kind of games? And they'd say it, and they go, and they would know who I was, and then I think that's when it clicked. It took a while.
Did they come to the Hall of Fame ceremony?
No, my father had passed away.
Oh,
my
sorry
mother
to
was
hear.
unable to travel, but my brother was there, and but we still got to celebrate all that.
Awesome. So, in between your graduation in '93, and then when you get hired at Bethesda in '94, did you have any like interesting odd jobs during that time, or? No,
I had come by Bethesda before I graduated. So I swung by. It was Martin Luther King weekend of my senior year, and as the story goes, I drove by the office. I was living in Pennsylvania, and it was on my way back to William & Mary. And I used to stop by the office. I just drove in cold and knocked on the door and said...
And they told you to stay in school.
They did. I said, I want to work here one day. And they said, well, are you available? I said, no, just FYI. And they told me to come back after I graduated. And I pinged them after I graduated, but there weren't any openings. And I actually got a job at a small place called AbleSoft, which got bought later by Microleague, who made old Microleague soccer. And so I was doing little Windows games and apps.
Huh.
Well, I'm calling it apps, they weren't
right,
then.
Not then.
But little Windows things and other programs. We did some small games. Worked on a thing. I was really into comic books too. We did a thing called the Comic Collector to let you organize your comic collections.
Nice.
And they sold these in, at the time, what was Electronics Boutique and Babbage's and CompUSA and all of these places. And I got to go to things like GDC in the early years. This was in '93.
Yeah.
And the precursor to E3 and those kind of things. And I would go by Bethesda and say, well, let me know when there's an opening. And eventually they did. They said, hey, we got something.
Eventually you got there.
Why don't you come in and talk to us? And I did.
And your first game was Terminator Future Shock, which I remember playing that game. I remember thinking, wow, this is a really cool Terminator. It's a first-person Terminator game. How great is this? So what was your approach? You did some design work and you were a producer on that.
Right.
What was sort of your approach to it with minimal previous experience to fall back on at that point?
When that project was going when I got here, I actually helped produce briefly a college basketball game that Bethesda had that was being done outside. They kind of gave me that and the CD-ROM version of Arena. Arena had just come out when I started, and that was a game that convinced me. Also, this is where I went to work. I was into sports games, I was into RPGs, I was into all of that stuff, and Future Shock was just starting to get going, and it was the advent of, hey, we have this 3D engine, the X engine, and this is the kind of game we want to do. And Daggerfall was just in its infancy. And they put me on as the producer, and which, looking back, is like way over, like, I don't know why you would
You're
put
like
me,
a 22-year-old kid.
like, okay. But it was the point is, I think gaming then, people know, was very, very small. Everybody had to do everything.
You're down in the basement, like boxing up copies, right?
We would box the copies and send them off. And so, but that was, I don't know, it's a team of 6, 7 people maybe, and everybody did everything. And that was like the best way to learn very, very quickly how to do this.
What do you remember about that project? Like, do you when I say it, do you think well of it? Do you think, oh, not that game? Or how do you remember
I
it?
loved it. It was like, is this how this shit actually works? Because at that time, legally, no one owned the Terminator license. I don't know if it was like legal battle, but I'm gonna get this wrong. Carolco, Hemdale, somebody, and they got in a fight over the license.
Yeah.
So we were doing, in that period, we were doing Terminator games and checked with nobody. Nobody said, like, we approve that or don't approve that. We did whatever the hell we wanted.
Awesome.
But we were fans of it, so we would pick apart the movies, and we just made the game, right? So that kind of, it also shows, like, that kind of, okay, we really want to dig in and make this feel right, but without somebody saying, no, we can move very quickly and make what I think is a fabulous game. And I think in many ways was ahead of its time. It was the first full 3D first-person shooter,
Yeah, I remember.
first PC game with mouse look. Which a lot of people were like, why would you do an interface like this? They're very used to Doom.
Oh yeah.
And the WSAD controls were what we had in Terminator. So I look back very, very fondly. And the other thing when I think about it is, obviously we get the Fallout license later, which seems like a departure to us. Whereas if you look at Terminator, we had actually been alternating post-apocalyptic 3D worlds and fantasy.
I never thought about it.
Right, exactly. So when it comes to Fallout, it wasn't that, okay, we've built these destroyed cities, here's how we did it in Future Shock and Skynet, the multiplayer one. And it wasn't that long ago. Some of the people were still here, like myself.
But so it sounds like, if you remember this fondly, it'd be cool to do it sounds like you'd be down for a remake, but the licensing now would probably just be a giant nightmare and not worth it.
It probably would be, yeah. And we have other things to work on. But I did a design for like another one after that called Terminator Dawn, I think it was, where you became the Terminator. But it never got off the ground because then the rights started being acquired.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, we have other things to do.
What'd you learn from that? Future Shock being your first like full major game project. Are there any sort of core lessons that you remember from that, or?
I mean, mostly it was that even on a small scale, these things are group efforts, right? When you're doing it on your own before you get into a studio, it's all up to you. And I could do a lot of things, right? I could program, I could do art, I could do level design, I could produce, I did the sound effects for Terminator and Daggerfall, and some for Morrowind, then I stopped. But your ability to work with a group and get the best out of everybody, even at that scale, made all the difference.
Yeah.
And then when you get it on a larger scale like we are now, it still makes a very, very big difference. It's a team sport.
So you moved on to Elder Scrolls after that, which had, as you noted, had already started. Arena had already come out. Now, given your penchant for role-playing games as a kid, was it at that point, is that dream come true territory where you've gone from playing role-playing games as a kid to making your own?
Looking back, yes. At the time, it was ours were so big, right? Whereas Terminator, you could focus a little more on a level, even though the levels are wide open expanses. An Elder Scrolls game is so big at the time, very procedurally generated as well. And it was wrapping your hands around what's going to make this tick on a minute-to-minute basis in the game. And so it wasn't until probably later into Oblivion where I started feeling like, okay, this is the type of thing that you know, we fulfilled the dream of this is what we should be making.
And it took you that long, not even Morrowind sort of.
I think in Morrowind, but getting through it was. We were making Oblivion, so it was after Morrowind came out.
Yeah.
Morrowind we can get into, but it's a time of, you know, the company going through a lot of troubles, and we got to get this game right. But when we're making Oblivion, we had more resources, a lot more we could do at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Had you played Elder Scrolls Arena prior to joining Bethesda?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, I loved it.
So you were able to just sort of dive right in.
Oh, very much, very much.
At least as far as the lore and all that stuff.
There's very little lore in that game, but the type of game it was.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, first person. It's like Ultima Underworld on a very grand scale, is what it was going for.
When so then you move on to Redguard, project leader there.
Yeah.
And so you're then tapped to lead Elder Scrolls 3.
Right.
Morrowind. So did you at the time see that as, okay, this is my big opportunity to like prove myself here? Or
in some ways, yes. What you also have, like, what was going on for us in the industry at the time. I had led Redguard, a game I love.
Yeah.
You know, I've always liked genre mashups. You know, Star Control 2 is one of my favorite games. There's a great game, The Horde, actually made by the same people, I believe. And Redguard was very much of a mashup. It's an adventure game, it's an action game, it's got a little bit of role-playing stuff in it. But the game did horribly, right? It was the wrong game at the wrong time, probably on the wrong platforms. And the company had really, really shrunk. Okay, so, and Morrowind had fits and starts and been put away. And it was really the Redguard team that was kind of left. And it was while we were making Redguard, they said, hey, we want you guys to go after Morrowind next. Todd, we want you to lead it.
Yeah.
And given how Redguard did, and we had some other fits and starts with Battlespire, and it was very clear, okay, this is kind of our last shot, right? And the company changed hands. That's where Bethesda then, ZeniMax Media was formed, and Bethesda Softworks became part of that. So it wasn't that it was necessarily my shot, it was kind of everybody's last shot, is how I'd say it.
And is there a tangible pressure at that point, or are you able to kind of not worry about that?
Yeah, no. Well,
major pressure?
It was pressure, but you're also not worried about it because you just went through, hey, this company could close, right? So it's also freeing in that, okay, we went at this with no fear.
Right.
But there's still that pressure of, if this game doesn't succeed, we're probably not a company. Which is pressure.
Right. So do you stop and think like, all right, well, if this fails, what am I going to do?
Nah, at the time, well, maybe I did. I don't think about it that way sitting here. When I look back, I think about it in terms of, we were very, very aggressive. Like the sky was the limit, because why not, right? What's going to happen? What's going to happen is where we were. Like, well, we're all hosed.
Yeah, shoot for the moon.
Right, exactly. Shoot for the moon, and this is what we should do. And we had very strong convictions as to the game that we wanted to make and how we were going to go about it.
So then Morrowind takes off, first on PC, and then it comes to Xbox. So did you have any inkling that it would translate well to consoles? Like, did Microsoft come to you guys and want that game, with the PS2 being, you know, really a home for Japanese RPGs? Like, what was sort of the story behind the sort of console success of Morrowind?
They did. They came to us when they were just about to announce the original Xbox, and we had a relationship, obviously, with Microsoft from the PC days, and I was doubtful at first. You know, we were very much a PC shop.
Yeah.
How will this translate? First of all, can we do it technically? Number one, really difficult proposition at the time, given the memory on the system. Number two, if we can say we can do it, how will it translate, both interface-wise and all those things? So let's say we do all that. Number three, is anyone going to want this? Like, console RPG at the time was very Final Fantasy.
Yes.
And we kind of put that number three away, right? There's nothing we can do about that. People want it or they don't want it. Let's focus, like, technically, how does the interface work? And Microsoft was awesome. They were an incredible partner in having us look at some interfaces and best practices. Technically, they helped us as well. But that was one of the Herculean, magical, the fact that we pulled that off, even today, I cannot tell you how that game works. I know, but it's pretty miraculous, and it was there was a slight gap between the PC and the Xbox, maybe a month or two.
Yeah.
I forget, but I was shocked at how well it did in Xbox. It became the dominant platform for the game. At the time, and I don't know the period of it, but it was the second best-selling game behind Halo.
I believe it.
Which, I don't think you go into that expecting that. And that did reorient us in terms of, hey, there's an audience for this that wants to play these kind of deeper experiences despite it being hooked to a television. It doesn't, the device doesn't matter as much to the audience, whereas you'd say a PC player thinks this way and a console player thinks this way. That definitely reoriented us to say, hey, going into Oblivion, we need to think of it like this.
And is it life-changing success of Morrowind overall, PC and console, or is it just a reassuring
It's
success?
A reassurance. No, it did well enough on the PC that we said, okay, we're good. We can, financially we're set. We can go into Oblivion with, and most places would say, okay, you have this huge success in Morrowind. Where's our sequel in a year or 2 years? And the fact that I was able to go and say, we'd like 4 years and to make a next-gen RPG is sort of like, that was a little bit of a conversation, but not as much pushback as you would think. It's one of the great things about this company is they let the creatives, like, what do you really want to do? What's your vision? How do we make it happen? And that has been one of the amazing things about ZeniMax and Bethesda across all of the studios that you don't see anywhere else. And I think part of that reason is because we're a private company, right?
Yeah, no shareholder stands.
And that jump is, okay, let's take 4 years and reboot all of this stuff after one success. That's pretty rare. And the other thing that happens in between there is, what else do you want to do? And that's where Fallout comes in.
Oh, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. That's
I don't want to jump ahead in your questions.
No, it's, but yeah, ZeniMax has put a lot of trust in you for a long time, and you've paid that trust off handsomely.
Well, it really is a partnership. I could not do it honestly without the people that I work with within ZeniMax who support this, and they're awesome partners.
Like we're going to go. We'll talk about this later, but we're probably going to be going a decade between Elder Scrolls games, and at any other publisher, they would laugh you out of the boardroom and fire you and say, no, we'll bring in somebody.
Well, I can't say they're ecstatic about that one, right?
But so okay, Oblivion, which you've been alluding to, that for me, that was the one for me that made me a super fan of what you guys do.
And I think that's when we first met.
It was, yeah. It was. I joked, I think with Pete Hines at the time, I should have had a desk here during the Oblivion times. I was out here a lot, and it was I have fond memories. I remember we did an exclusive review of Oblivion for Xbox Magazine, and I was in a conference room in the basement straight below us, 11 hours a day for 4 days.
Was it that?
And there was the hotel was right next door before it was converted into
the apartments.
There. Yeah, so I'd literally just walk back.
You did a number of previews, I remember.
Oh yeah.
Because Oblivion really was, hey, this is a true next gen.
It was
kind of the first new next-gen game.
Yeah, because it was the big, you're right, next-generation experience. it was kind of you guys. Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter was another big one early on. Gears of War wasn't coming out till the fall. Fight Night was beautiful.
Was it Fight Night?
Yeah, that was good. But then Halo was, off in the distance. So it was all about you guys, and so with Oblivion, it sounds like the discussion with Microsoft happened very early on for doing something on the Xenon.
Exactly. Good pull on the code name.
I've been around a while.
Yeah, after the Morrowind hits, it was, okay, we want you guys on the new one right away.
Yeah.
And it was a very early conversation. Here's what we're planning for hardware, here's this. And again, that helped tremendously. And we were going to be a launch title. And
That's what I was just going to ask you. Yeah, that was the plan, right?
That was the plan. We ended up in the launch window.
It was pretty close.
You know
March.
what? For the scale of that game, we hit, 4 months after launch on a new system for that kind of game. That was another incredible effort, but it was, that was about as close as I think as anyone's ever done it.
Yeah, and it was. Do you think in hindsight would being a day one title have made any real difference in the game? Went on to tremendous success, but would day one have made any difference?
I don't know. Sales-wise, I don't know. The quality-wise, it would have made a huge negative difference.
Right.
Because you're still looking at, at the end of the day, it is how much time do you have on the final hardware? And in those days, the hardware is coming in pretty hot. You're working on emulators and things like that before that.
Mac G5 dev kits, as I recall.
Right, but if you move 4 months, it may seem like 4 months, but that could be double or 300% longer on final hardware than in November or whatever day it was.
Now, there's sort of a famous story that Peter Moore told on my show one time about, I mean, it's told it elsewhere, but about Epic really pushing them with specific regard to Gears of War on the RAM.
Same. Oh my gosh.
So did you guys have any sort of influence on the hardware?
Oh my gosh. Because with Oblivion, you can only imagine.
I can imagine.
When they told us, we threw a party. I have pictures from the party. We had a double the memory party in the studio.
That's so great.
Yeah, we got drinks, and the programmers are, I think it was the only time we've ever done that for someone calls and says, yeah, okay, we've upped the hardware.
So you'd been leaning on them as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Leaning's the wrong word. Again, it's a partnership, but it was more of a, here's what you're going to get without it.
Right.
Here's what you're going to get with it.
What would we have gotten without that?
You might not have gotten the game. So
really?
I don't know. There's always sacrifices to be made. I don't remember per se, but the things we would have had to give up to get it to run were going to be extreme.
So I will never forget
I gotta
walking
pee.
into that dungeon, that jail cell for the first time, and then when you first emerge into the open world in Oblivion. What do you think about when you think about Oblivion now?
That was definitely at the time the stepping stone for us, where the people who played our games became so much larger that you couldn't quite take it all in. Whereas Morrowind, it was popular, but you could appreciate what the community was saying and things and the type of players that we had, and Oblivion just goes, where it seemed like everybody was playing it.
Yeah.
And that they were experiencing that type of game. The amount of new players, that's a better way to say it, right? The amount of new people coming to that kind of experience was large.
And is that the life-changing success? Because it seems like that's where it just went into the stratosphere.
It's like you're just like going
when does
up.
Todd Howard become Todd Howard?
I don't know. You can tell me. I feel I'm quite the same. But it's been slow, right? And you say, we've been doing this. I've been at the same place for 25 years with a lot of the same people. It's very gradual for us. Or it's like doing because the games take 3 or 4 years, like getting a new degree or going to school again. You learn something new, and then it goes to this, and it goes to this, and it goes to this.
Do the expectations, you got done praising your overlords here,
Right.
putting a lot of faith in you, but what happens to, if anything, to the expectations on you and on your team when Oblivion goes through the roof?
Well, they want to know what we're going to do next, right? So, hey, what's next? And there are obviously certain financial expectations, but those usually, they're obvious business things with what are you going to spend on the next game?
Yeah.
And when one's successful, not that they give you a blank check, but they say, just tell us what you want to do. And I've always been somewhat, compared to our competitors, conservative. I'd rather spend longer with less people than put 1,000 people on a game and try to do it quickly.
Because is your personal team, you manage one team here, or has it turned into more now?
It's more.
I mean, I know you have the satellite studios and you oversee all that, but is it still one team under you, or?
Well, that's a tricky answer in terms of we move people between projects now. And we had sort of done that when we got Fallout, where we'd have some people on Fallout and then on Elder Scrolls, and then there's usually like a 2-year period where everybody's on the game that's coming out. So it was a lot easier to kind of, we're a one project, one team studio.
Right.
Now we're 4 locations in North America. Typically what was 100 people here in Rockville is now 400 and some spread between Austin, Dallas, and Montreal. We can talk about how we got to that.
Yeah, we will.
But we felt we needed that scale to do some of the things that we were doing coming up, and we're able to do more stuff, but still when we have a game that needs people on it, we move people to it. And how I spend my time has definitely changed.
I am definitely curious about that, but I first want to, before we leave the Oblivion era, I got to talk to you about horse armor for a second.
I can talk about that at length.
Good. We have nothing but time. That's the beauty here.
Let's spend a good 20 minutes on horse armor.
So buckle up, everyone.
Right?
Yeah. I mean,
right.
if you're hardcore enough to watch this podcast, odds are
you want to know the story behind horse armor.
So
ringtones.
It was horse
That's
armor.
The anecdote.
Horse armor was one of the first bits of paid DLC.
I think it may be the first.
May have been the first.
I don't know.
I couldn't.
People tell me it's the first, but I'm not sure that's true.
It was definitely one of the first. We can agree on that much.
We can agree on that.
How much horse armor did you sell?
People will buy anything. That doesn't mean you should do it. They will buy anything. That sounds terrible.
That sounds real bad.
Horse armor is not bad. I think horse armor is fine. The price point at the time was the issue. And Xbox, they were doing themes, and that ringtones were big at the time. That's why I say ringtones.
Yes.
Ringtones are just crushing it financially for Nokia, whoever.
On your like Nokia
sure
candy bar phone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they started selling themes, and we said, well, we want to do expansion packs. We had done some for Morrowind. We'd rather have this free-flowing kind of DLC into the game. We have lots of ideas. We did a bunch for Morrowind and put them on the website for free. We're very into that, the creation kit and the modding and all of that.
Yes, you guys always have.
Okay, so how do we get this to console players? We'll do it this way. And horse armor is, for what it is actually, I think it's fine. You armor your horse, you can buy it. There's new dialogue that ups its stats, and we felt, well, it's probably worth this. And I won't say who at Microsoft said, well, that's less than we sell a theme for. Like a wallpaper is more than that.
Right.
You should charge this. You can always lower it. We're like, okay. And so I think it's a price to value proposition at the time, not do I want armor for my horse.
Yeah.
And looking back now, it's quite cheap compared to what some people. Yeah. But what's funny is, for a long time, every April Fool's Day, we would do a DLC sale for Oblivion and double the price of horse armor. And it sells more than everything. Because people are in on the joke.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Did the horse armor put your kids through college?
It will. That's not, it sells a lot. Yeah. But again,
what else was on the whiteboard when if you've had this meeting with Microsoft and they're like, we want some paid DLC?
The other stuff we put out, we did the Strongholds, we did Shivering Isles, we did Knights of the Nights. If you look at Oblivion, I think actually has an awesome suite of content that you can buy of different size, and the Mehrunes Razor dungeon, I think, looking back. And you can see us quickly adjust, right? Yeah. Price point to quality.
Yeah, Knights of the Nine was a more sort of traditional expansion.
Right. If you look at Knights of the Nine, I forget how much it was, but it's maybe...
Might have been 10 at the time.
Maybe, and horse armor was maybe, I don't know if it was $3.
I think it was 3.
Okay.
If memory serves.
So, but we're always chasing that, right? Where the price, I think others do as well, where given how much we jam in a game for $60, we can never quite meet that value proposition with any extra content because there's so much we give you for $60.
That's true.
And that's, look, anytime people are doing new things, they're going to go through that process.
So you alluded to this already, and you've told me the story before, but I don't think at IGN. So Fallout, the acquisition of Fallout, you had reached this level of success here that, if I remember correctly, the story goes, they asked you what you wanted to do next, and you told them you wanted Fallout, so they just went out and got it for you.
That's the shortest version of it, but true. Yeah, and that's another thing that's special about this place is, okay, we want, okay, what do you want to do other than Elder Scrolls? Morrowind has become this huge hit.
Yeah.
So this is between Morrowind and Oblivion.
Right.
2004, I believe. So just 2 years after Morrowind.
Interplay was going under-ish.
They're going under-ish.
There was the MMO.
Well, so the way it happens is we made a list of what else we'd like to do.
Yeah.
And a post-apocalyptic game was number one. And it was Fallout. Like, hey, this would be the perfect fit. We have a vision for what we do with it. This is the perfect fit. And some folks in the company knew folks at Interplay who ran it. And our actual pitch was, it was a license deal. We didn't actually buy it initially. We licensed it, which is probably why they picked us out of others, right? And here's what we're going to do with it.
Right. Because you are going to enhance their value in their eyes, or their IP's value.
Exactly. But it was something we felt strongly, obviously, would be great for us as well. But it's a license deal. And it was during development that it came up, hey, let's buy it out. And then that deal was done before the game came out. But initially, it's a licensing deal. And the odd thing there is we announced it before Oblivion. So Fallout 3 gets announced by us before Oblivion gets announced. And that was also a thing I remember at the time saying we had done Morrowind, and then we're going to announce we're doing Fallout 3, which throws the Fallout fans for a loop and the Elder Scrolls fans for a loop, right? So that's like a no-win announcement right there. And I think we added to it, yeah, we're doing it along with the next Elder Scrolls. So even though Fallout 3 was going to be a ways out, but that was one of my favorite experiences making a game by far was Fallout 3.
Wait, and how history has now repeated itself, where everybody just keeps harassing you about Elder Scrolls 6, and so last year you got to go out on stage and say, we're making it.
Exactly.
Now be quiet for a while, please.
Right. We got to be careful going to E3 and saying, here's a Fallout game we're not sure everybody wants. There's an Elder Scrolls game we're not sure everybody wants. Might as well say we're doing these other things as well that we're pretty sure you want from us.
What was it about Fallout that had appealed to you? I take it you'd played the originals.
Oh, I love it. It is just.
Yeah.
I think that world is complete genius, and I think it's shown when you look at all the other post-apocalyptic stuff that's come out.
Sure.
That basic world that the guys at Interplay did, and because that's the answer. Why don't you just do your own post-apocalyptic world? And it would not be the same, right? The world there that got destroyed is really interesting, and you can't kind of shoplift that.
So, a lot of people I won't make this a blanket statement, but in conversations with colleagues, friends, I've noticed a theme. Maybe it's just me that people seem to. They really like your games, but they tend to genuinely, really prefer Elder Scrolls or Fallout. I don't meet a lot of people that are like, I just love both to death. Most people tend to be like, yeah, I like them both, but man, I'm an Elder Scrolls person. Or, do you find that? And do you have a favorite child of the two?
I do not have a favorite child. I like going between them. They have different tones, so it's nice to spend time in each one. I think you're probably right there. We have a lot of people that play both, without a doubt. We can see that data, and there's a huge crossover.
Yeah.
Plus, otherwise, you can also see it in the success of the games. Fallout 3 would not have been the Fallout 3 the way it was without Oblivion, right? So Fallout 3, in some ways, is the follow-up from us to Oblivion.
Yeah.
And then Skyrim wouldn't have been what it was without Fallout 3 and Fallout 4. Okay, I don't need to do them all. But I agree with you that when I do meet people, they definitely, I play them both, but I love this one.
Yeah.
I really love this world, or I love this world, and they have very different tones, so it's understandable.
Do you think it is the tone that people tend to gravitate a little, maybe one way or the other?
Definitely. I think when you spend time in these games, you think about who you'd really be in that world and whether you want to make that your home.
Yeah.
And some people get excited by, what would I do after the world's destroyed? And where would I find the humanity in that? And then a fantasy world has opportunities in a different way. And so, yeah, I completely understand it. I'd never try to convince people of the other. Fallout 3, the one thing we got posted a lot was some people would say, well, I do find it very depressing. So I don't, people would say, okay, why didn't it stick with you? Like, it gets kind of dark.
And I think that's why I'm in the Elder Scrolls camp, is because your games are about living somewhere else. I like living in a medieval high fantasy setting, and it's a lot more bleak to live in a post-apocalyptic.
It can be bleak, but that's coming into Fallout 4. That was one of the themes. How do we make this your home?
Yeah.
You know, that's where you're going to building things and stuff like that.
How important is it to the creative health of your team to, I know you said you kind of will flow people back and forth, but generally speaking, you know, you're kind of focusing on Elder Scrolls or Fallout and now Starfield, which we'll talk about, but how important has that been over the years to the creative health of your team, rather than, you know, you see studios on other franchises that are just at work on the same thing year in and year out?
I think it's important, though. A lot of people they love these franchises. They would work on them for 10, 20 years in a row if we let them. It's more about not having a game every other year, or every year where they feel like, oh, we have a release. They do feel like, okay, we can take our time and do something unique with this each time.
So you think it's interesting. You think it's more about not wearing out the fans than about wearing out the developers.
No, the fans want it. If you gave them one in a year or 2 years, if you could hit that quality bar, we have shown they want it.
Yeah.
But that's just not, you know, the quality is going to suffer.
Right. Yeah, makes sense.
It's good. I'm just saying it's not essential.
Yeah.
Right. It's very good that we get to move between it because you miss it, right? When we had come to Fallout 4, we hadn't worked on Fallout in a while because we've been doing Skyrim, and you really kind of miss it. And then when we start looking at Elder Scrolls stuff, we miss it now, right? So
we miss it.
I know.
We'll talk about that. Okay, so yeah, you alluded to this earlier. The expansion of your empire, Bethesda Game Studios, Dallas,
your words.
Austin. Yeah. Okay. Well, sure. I'm the interviewer. They're my words.
Sure.
But yeah, I think it's fair to call it the Todd Howard Empire.
It's a very small one, though.
But it's yours.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So, how did that sort of all come about? Is that a thing where you just need more resources, and so you go to the company and say, what's the best way for me to get these additional resources, or is it a thing where they're coming to you suggesting, hey, Todd, we want to get some more irons in the fire, some more stuff cooking. How do we do that? So sort of how does the Todd Howard Empire grow to where it has?
I generally always get asked, well, I don't know if I'd call it pressure to hire more and expand so that we can do more. But I like to be conservative about that so that who we are and our culture doesn't change. So here in Rockville, we've grown at the same rate we've always grown. You know, we were 100, now we're maybe then 110, 120, 130, we're maybe about 140 right now. But so maybe we add 8 to 10 people a year.
Yeah.
And you could say on one hand, let's increase that growth and just start hiring. But I've seen that go wrong other places. We had an opportunity, so it started with Montreal, where we were working with a group of people, about 40-some that were at another company, and we said, we love working with you all. We would love to open a studio around you. So they were people we had worked with for a long time, years. And Yves Lachance, who runs that studio, one of the best game maker studio heads that I've worked with running that, and we didn't want to stop working together. And so we did that, but it wasn't like, okay, we're going to open a studio in Montreal and hire.
So it was super organic.
Right. And then the Austin studio had been Battlecry.
Right.
That was a studio already within ZeniMax, and there were issues with the project, and the company wanted to paused that project, but we knew some of the people there, and we said, hey, we have this online thing that we've kind of put aside. We don't have the skills for that. We'd love to work with them. But they were already working with the company. We knew them. And then same thing with Dallas. That was Escalation Studios, where we had worked with them for years. In all these cases, we had worked with these people for years before we said, hey, I think
you dated for a while before.
Right. We dated for a very long time. And so those weren't hiring. There wasn't a hiring pace, right? It was we're already working together. Dallas, they did all the VR versions. So they did VR Skyrim and Fallout 4 with us.
Yeah,
they did the Switch version of Fallout Shelter. And they had been working on Starfield stuff with us. And so it was, hey, we should get married.
So if you've got 140 people in this building, is it still at the point where I could bring in any one of them and you would know their name?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
so you know everybody still.
Oh, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Because you see a lot of the realities of AAA game development where they're 1,000-person efforts and
and it needs to be said, it's not just me. Our average tenure in Rockville is over 10 years. Over 10 years. And that sort of going through multiple cycles together, I think is what makes it really makes the difference. And some of these people I've worked with for 20 years. And that's just so unique in our industry, and it's I think what keeps us very, very motivated and like enriched by what we do.
Do you worry about some of the trends you see happening in games with, big rounds of layoffs or just ballooning project costs where it does take however many tens of millions of dollars and 1,000 people thrown at something? Like you've clearly got a good hand on your culture and what you guys are all about, but are you worried at all about the sort of industry at large?
I wouldn't say I'm worried. Those cycles come, right? You got to I look very holistically at video games and have done it long enough where you look at the previous console cycles or things like that where things happen in the industry. They get here's what happens. Something gets very, very popular and everybody chases it. It's like 6-year-old soccer, right?
Yeah.
Everyone chases the ball for a while and then it gets oversaturated and then it comes down.
Right, like Battle Royale right now.
Whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And so those things kind of, they come and go. And I think right now we are in a business cycle where there are certain pockets that, they're getting bubbly and will pop in some way. And hopefully whatever damage is caused by that is minimal.
So, there's also a lot of conversation about crunch these days and
Sure.
the health of teams and what these human beings have to go through to make these incredible, 100+ hour experiences like you guys make. How would you classify the health of your team as human beings? How are you guys taking care of them?
Look, we've been through, again, a lot of people here have done it for a long time. So we've been through every type of crunch you can imagine. And long ago, some ones that were very, very difficult for a lot of us, personally, and your time and your health and things like that. And we have gotten much, much better at it. So now we're at the point where, hey, we can really manage it, and we have enough people to move them between it. And I think it's why people stay here. I think each studio in our industry is very different. I wouldn't, I don't know enough about how other groups run to really judge that. I can only look at ourselves. The one thing I'll say is that I think every game deserves some amount at the very end, at some amount that is healthy to leave it all on the field. Because it's important to us, it's important to our fans. And you just got to make sure that is communicated really well. And look, a lot of industries have people that work really, really hard. The difference in games, when people ask about it, that I sort of tell them is, sometimes in a game, there's a lot of R&D effort. You could say, we're just going to crunch. We're going to spend 10 to 12 hours a day, and that could end up being meaningless, right? Well, that didn't work. And you start doing that for weeks on end, that's where it really weighs on you. So that's actually the part that, outside of the hours, that you have to manage.
So if as you read the reports, some of the great work like Jason Schreier's done and sort of shining a light on some of this stuff, do you read those and feel good about what what Bethesda and ZeniMax are doing, or do you read any of that and maybe say, oh, okay, well maybe I should take a closer look at who we are and what we're doing?
We're always looking at it here, so I don't, reading something about someone else, it doesn't change how we're doing things.
Yeah.
I feel that we've done really well with it, but there are times where we haven't, and we try to catch ourselves very quickly on those.
Yeah. Fallout 76 is a big fall game, not under your personal, like this team here at Rockville's.
There was a lot of people here involved in it, yeah.
It was Austin. The Austin team were they the kind of?
The Austin studio, the whole studio in Austin's working on it. I think they've done a really incredible job, but there's a lot of people here in Rockville and in Dallas and in Montreal.
Everybody.
That was a lot of people.
So that project certainly at launch was simply just not super well received, critically certainly. Do you have an idea of how it's going to land, or were you caught off guard by the launch of that game?
We knew we were going to have a lot of bumps. That's a difficult development. A lot of new systems and things like that. Hey, we're going to go try this new thing. And anytime you're going to do something new like that, you're going to have your bumps. You know that a lot of people might say, that's not the game we want from you. But we still want to be somebody who's trying new things. And that was a very difficult development on that game to get it where it was. And we were ready for, a lot of those difficulties ended up on the screen, and we knew, hey, look, this is not the type of game that people are used to from us, and we're going to get some criticism on it.
Yeah.
And a lot of that very well-deserved criticism.
Because you'd been on like quite the hot Las Vegas type of winning streak.
Sure.
You personally, like a Todd Howard, your name on something. So that was. But
we knew that going into this. We knew it's not that, right?
Yeah.
You would say, look, this isn't a game. Even from the beginning, this is not going to be like high Metacritic game. That's not what this is, given what it is. But we felt strongly this is a game we want to play. This is something we really want to do. And all of the games like this, whether it's us or somebody else, you can go back and look at them. There's a period once you launch. It's not how you launch, it's what it becomes. And can't be prouder of the team that's worked on it. They've worked tirelessly, and it's really turned around. It's a fabulous game and an incredible community around it.
How do you, is there a strategy for kind of getting over that, shaking the reputation that it got at launch and kind of winning people back over?
I think, well, there's no strategy other than just keep making the game better. And people who play it, and they'll come back. And it was, by the way, it's been very popular, right? So it was a huge release for us. The community around it's really, really strong. Obviously, it got a lot of criticism and stories, and we see all that. And it's not, you don't want to read that, but it is what it is. And again, we deserved a lot of that. So it's just working the issues. Like, hey, what do the consumers want? What do we want? How do we get there? This is a very long tale for us in this game, and there's some awesome stuff coming this year that I think people are going to see at E3 and be hopefully very excited.
Over the course of your career, have you been a guy that's read reviews?
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
I read them all.
So you got to read the good and the bad ones,
Absolutely.
right?
I read all the comments, and look, I've experienced it all, right? We've had the games that hit the high 90s and win all the games of the years, and we have the ones that don't as well, and that kind of comes with the territory. I think it's part of the job to read all of that, and whereas I don't always like the grammar or adjectives they use, I think the intent is always, even like a very mean-spirited comment from a fan, I think the intent behind that is actually well-meaning.
Yeah, there can be a kernel
they love these games.
Yeah.
And they're super important to them, and they're important to us. So I think you have to dig into that and say, okay, where could we have done better? Yeah.
So on that note, like if you knew going into 76 that it was maybe gonna be a little bumpy, what when it actually comes out and you see the real world feedback and reaction to it, and what have you learned from 76?
Well, the main takeaway we had was you got to let it bake with a large live audience for longer than we did. There's just certain things you can never see until it's running 24/7 for a number of months. So,
Yeah.
you know, if there's one thing that we could have, I think I would have done differently, is find a way to let at scale people be playing the game 24/7 before you say, you know, everybody in, here you go, pay us.
So if for instance, if maybe you wish you'd launched that into Steam Early Access,
Whether
or
well,
Xbox Game Preview, and
or something like
those
that,
whole
or
things.
you know, okay, you're a Fallout 4 player, we're going to let you in the beta for free for this period of time.
Yeah.
Things like that that
Yeah.
I think would have made a world of difference in how the game hit on day one. But it still probably would have had some issues, but we would have had a better look at what they were.
Right. Do you think 76 has had any lasting sort of damage to Bethesda's reputation or Fallout's reputation?
I'm sure it's had some. It would be naive to say it's had zero,
Yeah.
right? But I think if people come to the game now and see what's going on there, I think they'll be surprised. I'm really, really proud of what everybody's done in the game, and because I know where it's going, I think we're definitely long-term believers in what's going to be happening with that game, but more so us engaging with the people who play our games every day. And so it was partly that for me, which is if you look at a Skyrim and Fallout 4, those things, the amount of people that play those games still is, I mean, you can look it up on this. It's staggering.
Yeah.
Millions and millions of people every month playing those games, and we have no touch point with them.
Right.
Right? It's just like we ship the game, we do some mod stuff, but here you go. And so 76 was also, we need to learn how to be engaging and being able to update and see what players are doing and like be more engaged in that experience than zero, right? So
It's got to be, I don't know how much time you spend sort of looking outward at things, but it's got to be reassuring when you see a No Man's Sky or a Sea of Thieves, some of these other similar kind of service-based games that have that did launch poorly in some capacity or another, but have over time through many an update like come back to a place where they're now very well regarded and very well liked.
But more than that, it's actually all of them. Right, yeah, I won't go through the list. But
Yeah.
You could take most popular online games and go back to day zero, and they're going to go through their problems. And you're seeing that kind of across the industry.
Yeah.
That was the part we knew. I have to say, that's the part we knew going in. No matter what we do, we're going to have some problems, and we need to make sure we're ready to continue that momentum from before release, right through it.
Yeah.
Our own Elder Scrolls Online.
That's
right?
true. That's a good one.
That's a good one. It's our
Yeah.
own company, right? So they helped us on this game. They gave us a lot of vision as to like, here's how things are going to go. They've helped us post-release. And so our own company has been through that where ESO, the launch, wasn't a well-received game.
Right.
And that team did incredible work. And you look at ESO now, it's one of the most played MMOs across every platform. It's incredible.
Yeah, an 8-figure million player base.
So that's just within our company.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Fallout New Vegas, super well liked.
Yeah.
Very beloved over the years. Was there ever any thought to doing another Fallout game with Obsidian? Obviously, they're owned by Microsoft now, but did that ever go anywhere?
I wouldn't say there were conversations. Look, love those guys. Fergus is one of I think one of the great people in the industry, and we've always had a great relationship with them. We like to keep it internal because we know what we want to do. So it is, if we can keep it internal, we would. And now that they've been bought, you never say never,
Yeah, ship
but
sailed.
it makes it highly unlikely. I'll say that. And there were obviously very few people when the New Vegas thing came up because we were going to be moving on to Skyrim. Hey, we want more Fallout. Like, another thing, this is a hit. What are you going to do next? We're like, Skyrim. And it was, hey, look, there's only one group that we really trust to do this, and it was awesome.
It was only ever Obsidian.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That paid off.
We got other
very well.
We get lots of people saying that they would do it, even back then. Like,
Yeah.
hey, you should let us do this, and that was for me. It was the only. It's either this group or nobody.
Who's the most famous developer that you've rebuffed?
That would be unfair.
You can tell me off the air later. So what is the plan, generally speaking, for the new Bethesda game studios, you know, the Austins, the Dallases, the Montreals, are they there to assist this team's efforts here in Rockville, or are you gonna, or will we see them kind of grow their own IPs or work on, you know, new games and existing franchises?
Well, it's going to be a mix. We need certain scale for all of us to come together on some of the bigger things we're doing.
Yeah.
But there's also individual initiatives led out of each studio. In Montreal, the mobile group is in Montreal, who did Fallout Shelter, who did Blades, and I kind of executive produce and direct them with other people here. But the core team is there. Fabulous group. Dallas, again, they did the VR stuff, and Austin obviously leading the online efforts with 76. So it's kind of a mix. I don't want to give a specific answer to that, but there are times where it needs to act as one, and there are times where the leadership in those studios is going to be driving something.
Have you played with Valve Index or Rift S and the new VR headsets? And
little bit.
Is there a future for those in? You know, I don't know if they're ever going to go mainstream. If you know, that's everybody's always waiting for when is VR going to break through?
Ooh. I need to take a little bit of a break, maybe like 10 minutes or so of just like sitting down and not using my brain on the creative process of this. It really does take a lot out of the mind. So I'm going to move this over here and we'll just sit and watch for a few minutes.
But you guys are interested in continuing to explore VR?
We are. That's the kind of thing where we start very early. We did on VR initially. It's stuff we love. And I'm still waiting, personally, I think, and I've said before, you look historically at those things, it's generally the third generation of something where quality meets price point and the addressable market expands.
Yeah.
And it's gone a little slower than I would have
liked. So we're on Gen 2 now.
Well, we're like in the very beginning. We're like 1.8. I don't know. It's going a little slower than I had hoped.
Yeah.
And so we'll see where it heads. Obviously, as it comes to.
You know what we should watch Starfield gameplay. Just because I kind of want to watch Starfield gameplay.
It's hard to express how excited all of us at Bethesda are to be here with you today. We're so grateful you're spending the time, and we know you've waited a long time to finally see Starfield. It's easily our most ambitious game ever. Like our previous games, it's an epic role-playing game where you get to be who you want and go where you want. But this time, you'll be exploring space. So let's jump right in.
Why am I getting subtitles in something in Chinese? Lol.
The game as you arrive on the mysterious moon of Crete.
According to the scanners, the abandoned research facility is in this direction.
I will say this. This, like, seeing all of that when I first watched this gameplay trailer kind of worried me a bit because it made me think, oh, it really is a lot like No Man's Sky. But honestly, I think I don't think it's emphasized too much. I think a lot of folks are thinking about it as being a much bigger deal than it is. I feel like the whole mining thing, with it being such a big deal in No Man's Sky, we see it in this and we're like, oh boy. But I don't think it's really going to be as, like, it's going to be key, but it's not going to be as key of a gameplay detail as in No Man's Sky.
It would appear that pirates of the Crimson Fleet are using the facility.
After some initial encounters, you're invited to join Constellation, who, in the future the game is set in, are the last group of space explorers. To meet them, you'll head to the capital city of New Atlantis.
Welcome to Constellation. We have a lot to talk about. We're all here because we're committed to the biggest question of all. What's out there? These artifacts could be everything we've been looking for.
Now, here's my theory. There's like this whole deal with the main story that's kind of being hinted at, where it's like, oh, there are these devices and you're looking for artifacts and whatnot to like help activate them. My theory, and that the whole deal is like space exploration. My theory is that you're looking for ways to like either harness or utilize the power, or I guess the ability to use wormholes. Like that's kind of my theory, is that you're using, you know, these artifacts to make wormholes to travel around galaxies and whatnot. I just feel like that's kind of what's being hinted at. I could see how a main story could come out of that.
As to what they are, what they're building, you'll be part of solving that puzzle now.
So, you found something?
A new guy found it.
You dug up the artifact, right? That means you saw it. The visions?
The artifact you found appears to be one of many, scattered across the galaxy. If we can find more, we can unlock.
Hold on. Another thing I want to point out is that one thing that that Bethesda Game Studios is always like, I guess kind of quote unquote struggled with, in my opinion, are the amount of NPCs in their large cities. In Fallout 4, I kind of understand. Diamond City's like, wouldn't say it's very populated, neither is like Good Neighbor, but it's Fallout. You're not going to have a lot of people in Fallout. But Elder Scrolls, I felt like Whiterun or even Winterhold, less so Winterhold. I feel like Winterhold had like a decent sprinkling of people. I'd say even Solitude, all of those cities felt like they had a very minimal amount of NPCs, in my opinion. I felt like I could walk around and like know everybody, but what I want is to kind of like walk around a big city like this and not know everybody. Like, I would like just like to walk past an NPC who has no value to the main character, because that's kind of how it is every day in real life. You're going to walk past people who have no effect on you, but they're there and you see them and they are among the population. And I feel like what they're showing off here and here, like,
if we can find more,
and especially here, like, I feel like there's a lot of people, and I doubt that all of them have some sort of unique use.
unlock their secrets.
Beautiful, isn't it? The man who sold me this told me that it spoke to him.
Of course, the settled systems is full of groups with other priorities.
That's the Crimson Fleet!
Everybody get ready!
The fleet doesn't follow the rules. Agree to work for UCC staff. Together, we take down these cutthroat pirates.
We're not just here to shoot the bad guys. We're peacekeepers. We protect the people of the Free Star Collective.
When you sign up with the Crimson Fleet, no one quits. The only way out is death.
The path ahead may be dangerous, but we are not stopping.
Most Dusties don't even make it this far.
Because whatever lies at the end of this road will change humanity forever.
That gives you a look at the stories in Starfield. But ultimately, it's not our story. It's the story you create by who you are and the choices you make. And that starts with character creation. It's our most flexible yet. You can customize all the elements of how you look.
Looks a lot like the others.
You'll pick a background that gives you 3 starting skills.
Says here you spent some time as a diplomat. Having a way with words might prove useful.
There are optional traits, and these come with unique advantages and disadvantages. But it's not just in how you can look, but in how your character plays and develops. The skill system combines the best from our previous games, and you...
Okay. Physical. What the hell is the difference between science and tech? Like maybe there's some more biological in science? See more of that. Oh, there are skill points. Okay. So obviously, well, obviously I would assume you would level up and get skill points in other ways. And I wonder if these tiers are unlocked by spending points in them or by level, or if it doesn't matter. I don't know. But I do like in this situation, it's kind of a mix of Fallout 4's, and I'd say it actually kind of reminds me of Cyberpunk. where you spend skill points on a perk, and then you use the like you do challenges to be able to unlock the next rank. Wow, that's a lot of enemies to have to kill with explosives. Wow, that is a lot of enemies. Wow.
You can unlock new skills as you level up, and then you rank those skills up by using them and completing challenges. And there's deep crafting systems, from running research projects with resource
Go back.
challenges. And there's deep crafting systems, from running
Okay, food and drink, pharmacology, obviously like medicine, outpost development, equipment, weaponry. Okay.
research projects with resources you find.
Barrel mods, grip mods, optics, muzzles.
To crafting weapon mods needed to survive. And you can build your own outposts. These act as a home away from home for survival and resource generation. You can choose where and how to build each one, and you can hire characters you meet to keep it up and running. But that's not all. You can even build your own spaceships. You can choose crew members, and yes, you can completely customize the look and layout. There's loads of different modules, ship manufacturers, and more. I have to say, it's so cool. We just absolutely love this. It's not just how the ship looks, it's how it performs, from engines to shields to weapon systems, because yes, you can fly it.
I'm sorry, I laugh every time. Todd Howard does this in every single presentation, every single one, where he is like talking about something or some sort of, feature. And then he's like, because yes, you can do this. It's always because yes. He does it every time and I love it.
Systems, because yes, you can fly it.
I love it. Todd Howard is wonderful. Although I disagree wholeheartedly with Todd Howard when he says that the best way to experience, he doesn't say like all games because that would be naive, but his games like Starfield, Fallout 4 or whatever, like he says the best way to experience those games are like 30 FPS with the graphics turned up all the way. But I'm like, no. I do disagree there. And this is actually something that has come out recently. I actually read something, I think on Twitter or Facebook, about how an overwhelming number of people, when they're playing games on PlayStation 5, choose performance mode over quality mode. And yeah, like the thing is, performance mode doesn't look as good, but the thing is, you make performance mode look, well enough to where it runs at least 60 frames per second. At least, bare minimum. And yeah, if you're just like walking around, exploring, doing nothing, then yeah, switch it to quality mode. Get the best out of your graphics. Like, I get it. But you can't not have a performance mode option. That's where I disagree wholeheartedly.
We can't wait for all of you to experience the game. Thanks again for being with us today, and thanks for all the support you've given us over the decades, especially on this game. It's been an incredible journey for us making it, but we know that's really only the beginning, for it's when all of you play it that the real journey begins. And you may be wondering, just how big is this game? So we thought we'd take one last moment and show you. Let's take a look at one of our planets, Jemison. You can land into Atlantis, but you can also land and explore anywhere on the planet. And it's not just this planet, it's all the planets in the system. From barren but resource-heavy ice balls to Goldilocks planets with life. And not just this system, but over 100 systems. Over 1,000 planets, all open for you to explore. We can't wait to see what you find.
Do they always not have the middle dash and the A? Oh. How have I never noticed that? No, I gotta know. Starfield teaser.
Vast.
I'm sorry, that's not it. Wow, really? This whole time? Can't believe I've never noticed. I always thought it had it. But it doesn't. Interesting. Okay. I'm going to take a second and, like, just really stretch my legs. Because, honestly, I still feel kind of tired, but I feel a little better. All right, I'm going to stretch my legs for a second. Oh, man. And yeah, I'm wearing my Fallout 3 Animal Friend Alt Tee of the Month. This was actually the very first one that was released. Okay, stretch my back out. Oh. I'm gonna do some stretching exercises on the floor. Oh. Ow. Okay. That felt good. Okay, I'm kind of done with this Brian McCaffrey interview. See if we can find another one. How about the making of Oblivion? Actually, wait. Well, one thing is for sure, we're not listening to Lex Friedman. Because that interview with Todd is just too long. I suppose we could fit in making of Oblivion and possibly the making of Fallout 3 as well.
It'll take a long time.
Oh,
That's the thing that shocks most people. You know, they think of a video game as a few people in their garage, and you say, no, this is 50, 60 people for 3.5 years. Like, what? A lot of people, I think that video games are, purely kids, so it's like a toy. So, why would you put that much effort into something that's a toy? I was the kid. I was writing games when I was, 12, whatever. And the other kids in the block would say, I'm going to play quarterback for the Cowboys. And I'd be like, I'm going to make video games, and everyone's going to play them. Like, you dork. Go back to the chess club. Who's laughing now? Yes, I was in the chess club. So The Elder Scrolls is our role-playing series that we've been doing since 1994, and with each game we have started over and tried to do something very, very new. Each of them we try to, for that generation of hardware and game-playing folks, create what we think is the quintessential role-playing game, and this time we went crazy and looked at doing the game for next-generation consoles and PCs that didn't even exist when we started this project.
All right, so this is her new upstairs. This is her puppy named Dog. She talks to him. She says, no, she's got to practice. She's got things to do. She's got to practice. He has to be good dog. So she's going to go pick up that bow that's over on the table there. And she's going to take a few shots. Right now, her marksman skill is very low. So she goes and she gets a marksmanship potion.
Are they actually drinking potions? How'd you do that?
She drinks a potion.
Pause a second. So this is new to me, so I'm making lists.
I've got that on the list as we need the potion art and drinking potion.
That.
Yeah, it's on there.
Okay.
All right, so she drinks that, which increases her marksmanship skill. Now she
Dude, that is brilliant.
So she goes and picks up this book over here and starts reading. Dog starts eating. His animations are going to be tweaked, and now he's got all sorts of energy. He's running around like an idiot. And she's starting to get annoyed because she's trying to read. She's like, no, mommy's reading. And he goes, huh? Bam! Paralyzed. Falls over. She goes back to reading while the dog twitches helplessly on the ground. All right, so now she says she's gonna go get some sleep. The dog still wants food though, so he follows her over to the bed. She says, "You're a very bad puppy. You're a very bad puppy." And he goes, after kicking a bottle out of him. Awesome. And scene.
I think the demo showed a lot of promise, and we just have to go through and polish a lot of small stuff. And you know, the final battle part definitely isn't quite there yet, but I mean, the game systems work. We just need to go back and add that extra fine-tuning, extra scripting that's required for that. So.
And no panic yet.
You guys are waiting for this panic, and I don't think it's quite gonna come.
What's at stake here? There are two big focuses for E3. So one is the demo, and we'll go in there, have a big, giant plasma screen, and it'll be, you know, me and Todd in there just talking to people about the game and kind of running through the same demo every hour on the hour. And then the second thing would be the trailer. It has to be awesome. It can't miss. It's the most important thing we do because it gets seen by everybody.
For 65 years, I have ruled this empire. Generals and kings have knelt at my command. But a darkness comes. The blood tide rises. These are the closing days of the Third Era.
Oblivion is a sword and sorcery epic role-playing game. You know, the things you see in Lord of the Rings or stuff like that. And at its heart, you know, it is this run through dungeons and kill things game. You have all these features and it's all kind of, there's so many things people get attached to, but at its heart, it's run through dungeons and kill creatures and take their stuff and buy bigger weapons and kill bigger creatures. And that's kind of layered in on top of this. Wow, look at these flowers. Can I pick that? You know, it's almost like two things sitting on top of each other. Here's the game, and then here's the virtual world.
Yeah, so like the triple R is perfect for like, you want to give the player a chance to avoid it, to feel like they see it, or to use it against the creatures. Again, we'll be liberal with those traps. I'd rather add too many and have people complain and take them out, rather than have
That's
empty
what I'm
spaces.
thinking right now with loot and creatures. Yeah, I'm trying to overwhelm it with lots of loot. So that you get more out of the dungeon, because, you know, everybody's been saying the argument, you get more in someone's basement than you do in a quest.
Well, I'm one of the world artists, but I specialize in the Oblivion plane art and the lower class. The stuff that's really dirty and dingy and sort of nasty, or the stuff that looks very deadly and scary and, you know, somewhat demonic or evil. That seems to be in my comfort zone, in a way, that I can go do that stuff far easier than if they asked me to do anything that was nice and beautiful. This is basically showing an overview of what you'd expect a dungeon level to look like. So they're built on a grid system, so that they have an exact fit and match, and you won't see any seams. You know, it's a lot like a Lego set in the way, except, you know, far more complex and detailed. And then before you know it, you have this world that you created in your own mind that you can sort of experience and feel the atmosphere and sort of the dread and the scariness of it. And this is where you find your first area that's inhabited by traps. So my goal is, you know, I'm hoping the player will walk over to the treasure chest and walk through all three of these zones, therefore setting off all three of these traps up here, 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 and here. I mean, I live a pretty normal life. I have a wife and two daughters, so it's very normal for me, but they exist in that world with me, like they're exposed to the monsters and to the films and all the stuff that I have in the house. I love the undead. I try to use them as much as possible. Just bring in one of these guys, pop them down, and so like this one only has one arm. or the other one has no head. I guess I'm sort of a non-conventional sort of person, so that I've always stayed away from the, more conservative side of life. So I like the stuff that is far more, I guess, less mainstream. So it wouldn't just follow this route along the path here, but maybe it would take this route, and give it a little bit more lifelike behavior as far as the direction it's going to travel. But also give people questions as to why it's there and what it stands for, because that could be more interesting in what you read into it rather than the literal. What your mind imagines sometimes is far cooler than what the reality is of situations.
I know the designers have a long wish list of art that they wanted, but you know what? I mean, if you don't get that unique looking sword, I think we can live with it looking like every other sword in the game, so.
I'm waiting for Craig to do as usual. Everybody stop coding, I'm gonna fix this.
Practice 2-step. 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Woo-hoo! So I'm gonna make everybody turn around and we'll start making some progress.
I think the big thing is the AI we have in the game. We designed this system, Radiant AI, that allows the people in the world to react really intelligently, and they sort of have their own goals, so they can look at their environment around them and decide how they want to accomplish them.
Our NPCs exist no matter if you're there or not. They're doing what they're supposed to do. You can send a guy off to a dungeon to kill stuff, and you don't have to go with him. You go back to that dungeon, either he'll be dead or the things that he was supposed to kill will be dead. I mean, it will have happened whether you were there or not.
Like this guy, I can basically go up to him and say hi to him, and he'll greet me. He'll chat with me.
His aggression is like a 5. I'm going to give him a higher aggression. So now he really hates my guts. He tremendously hates my guts.
So we're going to move over here, and he's immediately going to go combat with me. The guy behind him is a guard. So he committed a crime by attacking me, so the guard will attack him. These other guys are just trying to stay away. So eventually he figures out the guard is a much dangerous target than I am, because I haven't struck him once, so he'll fight the guard. But the good guard saved me, kept me from getting killed.
One of the initial things we had was we turned it on so the guys could all do their stuff, and some guy went around town, some NPC you couldn't even see, went around town and bought all the armor. So when you went to the stores, there was nothing for you to buy. It's like a ship that's bringing all these water leaks, and we're constantly filling them up. Did you realize the player can easily steal a horse, ride it to this guy's place, leave it in his house, and steal all his money when the other guy goes out and tries to ride the horse, and hilarity ensues.
When you have something that's powerful, it has a great capacity to be really cool or a great capacity to really make insanity.
They're my actors, they're my children, they have to behave properly. When they're not acting right.
Okay, folks. Let me I guess there's one more thing I got to do. Wait. It's not it. Yeah, that's what I need. Yeah, that's it. I think I'll put doors there too. But anyways, before I continue further, I'm just going to kind of explain this next area here. Okay. So the whole idea is that this first initial portion of the level is fairly simplistic. It's just kind of like Toomey. It's meant to introduce you to like the Draugr. You go down. There's like a little bit of an extra treasure room right here that I think might have a werewolf in it. But then it goes down. You go down. You get compressed into a small hallway, and then you're opened up into like kind of a bigger cave area. And when you enter this cave area, this door, this barred door, is going to close behind you and pretty much in front of you on the other end there. And your whole goal... Hello, I just see something I shouldn't have. I did just see something I shouldn't have. Guess what? Gotta put that back. Okay. But yeah, those doors close, and the whole idea for this section of the level is that there's gonna be like respawning werewolves. Maybe werebears as well. I'm not sure yet. But there's gonna be like respawning werewolves and werebears. And even some regular wolves, probably not regular bears. Actually, this might just be... I think actually what I'll do is I'll have wolves and werewolves in this area. And they'll be respawning. And there's going to be... well... I might put a lever over here that does nothing, or there'll be one of two levers that you need to activate, because the other lever that you activate will come over here in this little tiny enclosed area, and when you activate both, then the enemies will stop respawning and the door will open. Then you can cross the bridge and go through the door to the next area. Now this next area, I actually really like this next area, the idea of this next area. So the whole idea of this next area is it's supposed to be mazy. Amazing. No, but just wanted to get that. Yeah. So this area is supposed to be pretty mazy, but so basically you walk in. You can walk straight. Most players I know don't usually fall for these traps, so they'll usually walk around them or trigger them and then walk around them. You should be okay. Like, I don't think that distance will kill you if you fall and die, or well, if you fall. But anyways, the whole idea is that you come around and then the player will look and see these closed doors. Now the thing is, this one at the end will be open. That's just this. There's just one there for the next room. But anyways, you're going to see these 3 closed gates, and there's going to be like 3 different areas they can go through. So there's one there. Come on, turn. There's one here that'll go down, and then there's one here that'll go left, and they all lead to like different maze areas. Not very big, but you know, they're mazy. So you'll walk in, and they're all going to have levers to activate that'll open a door individually. And the thing is, this shaft will open. Well, when triggered, it'll open and the player will fall. And it'll kind of take them down to this lower level area, and they can traverse this side of the maze first if they fall through the trap. For this bottom one, I think I'm going to put... I could see. I could freaking see! Okay. Well, now I can see. Oh yeah, that's right. I was gonna put it over there. Gonna put it over there. And most of these hallways are gonna just be filled with, you know, Draugr. But there are a couple of small rooms. There's one here. I don't think there's one on the lower level. Maybe I'll put something in the shaft. I don't know yet. But room there, and then there's like a smaller room here. I think I'm going to put werebears in. Kind of introduce the players to the active werebears. But yeah, basically the players will traverse these 3 different areas that are maze-like. And after doing so, and they trigger or they activate all the levers, then all 3 of the doors will be open. And then when all 3 of the doors are open, they can continue into what will be the final area of this level. I don't want this to be a huge level. I want it to be big, but I don't want it to be huge. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll kind of see how it comes along, but it's coming along very nicely. So, I got about an hour left. I think what I'll do is just kind of finish putting stuff in this section, like doors and the levers, I suppose. I'll put the levers in. Okay.
Everyone comes looking to me, so yeah, I talk to them and I have them set up and know what they do. And yeah, it's kind of odd.
Yeah, I'm the lead artist for Oblivion.
I'm a 3D modeler and texture artist for Bethesda Softworks. I work mostly on environmental and city art.
Yeah, I mean, I get a chance to really look at every aspect of the game artistically, but primarily I focus on the environments. Well, it originally starts out as me just thinking about things while I'm working. But later on, after I have, some good source images, I'll do a pencil sketch like this that's more defined and something that I can model from. Yeah, I think it's really hard to come up with an interesting idea for something that's evil. It's a lot harder than you think. A lot of times I think it looks really cool, but it's not necessarily scary. Actually, this is kind of the most fun part of the game sometimes, because you're still making up ideas. It might not get in the game, but it's, I don't know. You just get to make up crazy stuff, and it's cool, so.
So we are in Shaden Hall. This is the overhead view in the Elder Scrolls construction set, which we used to build the game. This is where we put in all the houses, the trees, paint all the landscape textures on, everything like that. And then these are our little door markers over here. This indicates that this is a door you can go through. There are a few things that might not look like doors, but they are. Yeah, this well behind the abandoned house might be used for nefarious practices, or it could be a secret door. It's really fun because, we go everywhere to find source photographs. Like, we took a day trip to DC one weekend and we just took tons of pictures of buildings, trying to get the just the right, stone pattern and making sure that we photographed everything we possibly can, just in case.
Well, I took the photos I took here, I ended up using for a lot of the Imperial City base stonework. Yeah, so it ends up, looking somewhat boring to you, but, we can take the edges of these stones here on the ground or all the little stains in there and use those and build a whole new wall in the game. I can't get over how much this looks like something in the game. It looks really nice. Even like just the top part of it over there. Actually, a hard thing to find generally is just finding nice patterns, just architectural details, just things that we can put into a building to give it some more decoration. A really good example is you can see the coffered ceiling, and I tried to build something just like that in the temple in the Imperial City. So I tried to recreate something very similar to that. It's actually the top of a dome, but I'm using it for the top of an altar instead. So once I add all these different layers into it, it's more like the final texture.
We've been able to make this living, breathing city that's like actually there. It's like, man, I totally live here.
Just type pick idle.
Pick idle. What's that supposed to do?
Did you actually select the right idle animation in the idle manager?
Yes.
Click on the candle.
All right.
We have over 100 bugs and tasks open in the database, and that number fluctuates anywhere from 50, and we've had over 300.
Candle fact, 01. So essentially, you didn't go ask anybody who made this up?
No, it doesn't work. I asked Dawn, and she told me to do this.
She's still bluffing.
It all ties together. It's all one big bundle of this is the universe, and you touch something here, and it moves something over there.
Now,
you have duration 1.
I have duration 1. In
Put a duration
theory,
0.
Well, I used 0 before, but that's the
Well, that would get rid of the problem you think you're having.
And he did nothing. See, I mock you.
What's his energy?
50.
Oh, that's high. Set it to 5. Low energy, idle more.
Oh.
No, he didn't do it
He
anyway.
just finished it. That could well be a bug.
If you run through the demo now and see the lightning effect, the fireball effect in the bookstore is messed up. But if you don't see the lightning effect, it's fine.
So basically, for this next week or two, you guys are really gonna have to talk to each other. You're gonna have to be really, really smart about stuff that you put in the game, stuff that you update. If you see anything broken, you have to speak up. Do not assume that QA is gonna catch it, that I'm gonna catch it, or someone else is gonna catch it.
If it says E3, it needs to be done that day. And if you look at it and it can't be done that day, talk to somebody about it. Because we need to sort of slot these things and make sure it's all done over the next week. We've seen it, it's there. We just sort of have to, get some of the mess out of the way and let it shine through. But we've done it before, we can do it again. So, let's do it.
I'm basically the chief deficiency inspector. So if there's any problems, I'm the one in there finding them. Primarily, I'm looking for crashes. Anything at this point specifically that's going to make the demo look incomplete. Like, the worst thing that could possibly happen is for it to crash while we're showing it to people. Oh, there it is. You see that?
How'd you do that?
Hey, Chris. It's that power attack thing where you get stuck. Can I kill every creature in the game? Can I soul trap every creature in the game? Can I click every button in the game? Can I exit the game from everywhere in the game? If I save the game this way, does anything get messed up? If I go here and save, does anything get messed up? I think we should throw a fireball here, but that's up to you. Because I think it was... No?
Now you've ruined everything.
But it looks so cool going down there. Yeah. That's the beauty of my job is I get to do everything hundreds of times. Minimum 2 times an hour, 10, 12 hours a day, 30 a day all week. Hey, that's like 150 times this week.
My name's Christiana Meister. I'm the lead character animator. I basically take care of all the characters, creatures, and that sort of thing. My particular favorite is the horse, You study the skeleton and you know exactly how it should move.
You go to biped, and then you just drag a box and create one. Okay, so that doesn't look anything like a horse. You have to then create the structure by scaling the bones, rotating them. It looks really crazy right now, but you start off with your base skin and try to match.
This is where my patience runs out. I cannot do animation. I cannot do modeling. My patience levels will just drain. It's not for me. I really admire the people who can. And the thing is, I know a lot of those people who do like animation and whatnot. They're like, oh, I don't have the patience for doing like interior design stuff because it's just like a lot of really small stuff. Ooh, that's something we gotta fix. Just needs to be moved. But we gotta fix it. That's why we play the game. I think I want it flipped. Okay, this is very maze-like. Okay, I'm kind of starting to remember how it goes. Yeah, this is where the lever will be. That door's fine. Okay, so that's really... So far, there's only one door that is fine. Two doors that are fine. Okay. All but 3 doors need to be flipped. This one is 1. This one is another.
Match up your skeleton with that. Now you can see here what I've done is put movement throughout the entire leg, but that doesn't react with the rest of the body. So then what you need to do is make sure that the rest of the body reacts to that movement, because it does in real life. If you move her head, you see the hind end actually moves. Everything's connected. You know, there's not one joint that you can just move independently, really. And here's a horse that I can get up and ride. I have to get with the character animator on this riding animation. It looks uncomfortable to me. There's always work to be done. Yeah, I'm always, you know, watching her move, and it also helps to, when I ride, I can feel what's going on. So feeling is a good part of animating as well, because you think about your body position and everything else while you're riding. I don't know, people are not my forte, really. I like thinking about the 4 legs instead of 2 legs. I know there are people that are completely the opposite, but I don't know. I find them much more interesting. Yeah, it's fun.
With Oblivion, we were really fortunate to get some voice talent that people know to join us for the project, including Patrick Stewart, Linda Carter, Sean Bean, Terrence Stamp. I'm always anxious about getting here late. God, if I miss this. I tried to get on an earlier flight. We got to the airport early, but they wouldn't let me on it. Superman 1 and 2, kind of my formative years, you know, when I was 6 or 7. Terrence Stamp is General Zod, and he has a great line in Superman 2 where he gets Superman to kneel, and son of Jor-El, kneel before Zod. And my brother would always do that, but change Zod to Todd. So just over the years, one of those things, you know, for 20-some years, just keeps going, and now I'm gonna meet him, and if I can get him to record it, send it to my brother, that'd be great.
As for the rest, the weak shall be winnowed, the timid shall be cast down, the mighty shall tremble at my feet and pray for pardon. Your reward, brothers and sisters, the time of cleansing draws nigh. Weakness will be purged from the world, and mortal and immortal alike purified in the refiner's fire.
That gave me goosebumps. Terrence Stamp plays kind of the, you know, he's the bad guy, somebody who comes from a different line of kings, who wants to make this world his own. So he's kind of a priest. You know, he's not a cackling maniac. We like to have our bad guys be a little grayer. We want that moment where the player goes like, maybe he's right.
You think I mock you? Not at all. In your coming, I hear the footsteps of fate. You'll tell me if I'm overdoing it, won't you?
Yeah.
Impossible. It's impossible to overdo.
Yeah, it's kind of like he said while we were there, the character just came out of him. It's like a very serious voice. You know the guy at the other end of that is serious, you know.
But if a god can die, how does his heart survive?
Good. When we wrote this role, I called them and I said, they're like, well, you know, who do you want for this role? And they'd give me a list. And I said, no, I gotta have Terrence Stamp.
Oh,
like,
how
I don't know
wonderful.
if he does. I don't know if he's done a game. I said,
Yeah.
He has, but I think he's.
No, I mean, I wasn't unnerved, but when I got the FedEx last night with the script, you know, and I looked at it and I thought, well, I just don't know. I hope there's somebody there to tell me where to go, because I just had I didn't know, like, the area of it. Like I didn't know the area of performance, you know.
Right. So I look forward to, you know, showing it to them and having them, you know, oh, you know, I've never seen myself in that light. Just how well we can lip sync and put other characters on the screen.
Kneel before Todd.
You got to put that in.
Smile when you ask questions like that.
Thanks. Thanks, Tony.
Gentlemen, wonderful.
So this is my pal Terrence Stamp. He's never done a video game before or any type of voiceover, and he was really, really excited to do it. He was really, really into it. He was literally like when we were recording him, you know, leaping around doing the combat stuff so much that they couldn't record him. He was moving away from the microphone, you know.
I've heard rumors about the
With
Council of
Linda,
Mages
she
consorting
played the
with
Nord
outside
females in Morrowind, and she came back for Oblivion to do the Nord females again.
I played the Nord women, the Nords, and they are, I guess, a Viking-like race, and the women are fantastic warriors and very self-confident.
You know, her voice and who she is fits perfectly with that role.
I'd stay inside the city walls if I were you. There's no telling what's going to come out of that gate.
Of course, the next guy is my wife and I with Patrick Stewart, who's equally as good. Ken had written a bunch of notes for Patrick Stewart on the character, very, very long, referencing things Stewart had done before. I thought was embarrassingly long, actually. But I forwarded it on here, sent it to Patrick, and Patrick came in and said, I got the notes on the character, and I was sort of like, and he's like, never in my life doing any role have I gotten such detailed notes, and I loved it. I am really intrigued. This sounds really cool. You guys have given this a lot of thought. I can't wait to do it.
You want to hear something really cool?
What?
You need to go over to Mark Lampert's office right now.
Okay.
Is Ken still here?
I don't know. I've been waiting.
Just imagine the best it could be. It's even better than that.
Yes.
I think you want to come over to Mark Lampert's office right now.
What, is it good?
Where? It's in Mark's room, the sound room.
On my way.
I was born 87 years ago. For
Wonderful.
65 years, I've ruled as Tamriel's emperor. But for all these years, I've never been the ruler of my own dreams.
He was selling the product like, a reverend standing in front of his flock, which is exactly the tone I wanted.
I mean, Patrick Stewart. This is the unedited stuff.
Generals and kings have knelt at my command.
That's such a cheesy line. That sounds good when he says it.
Generals and Kings line?
That's what I said every time I heard Make Our Cameras saying this shit.
Rises.
It's like all the stuff that sounded so cheesy.
These are the closing days of the Third Era. And the final hours of my life.
I don't know, like, if we could have picked, there isn't another actor we could have picked who I'd be happier to write dialogue for. Like, seriously, like, I geeked out over Star Trek for years. You know, it was on while I was in college. We literally, all my friends, I would sit around, we watch Star Trek and drink beer and act like idiots. I don't have a picture of my wife in my wallet right now, but I've got Patrick Stewart in my wallet. So, there's no better actor as far as I'm concerned. Like, I get to say I wrote dialogue for Patrick Stewart. Yeah, I'm happy.
You got your wallet?
Yeah, I got it. This is not a lie. See, my wife will not be happy, but I have a Patrick Stewart picture in my wallet. Right there.
So you guys know our demo machine melted last night? And the motherboard's dead?
We're never really sure. Could have been a defective motherboard. We could have just been putting too much into it. We weren't overclocking it at all. So I checked out. We're sending it back to the manufacturer, Asus, and they're going to send us a new one.
So right now we have the code changing, we have the data changing, and now our hardware is changing. So the triumvirate of things changing is bad. Better now than next week.
Normally, it'll crash to the Windows desktop, and you just start it back up and play it again. Well, this crashed in such a way that they actually had to completely power off the machine and restart it. This happened several times throughout the day, and finally on that last one, it just didn't come back on.
By the way, the end of the demo is completely different. For those of you who weren't here on Friday, we changed the ending. It's way more dramatic.
Feed
You have to do all the kids too.
I think it looks cool when I block him. I mean, I think the end is the best part now. And before, for me, it was, the worst part. And now I think it's the best part. I don't know if that's the newness of it. But it's got good, epic fantasy demon stuff at the end, which I think the kids like.
Okay.
Yeah, the Force stuff for us has always been the kind of rendering-wise the craziest thing that we trying to do, and the thing that also has the biggest visual impact of the game. People see it, wow, I've never seen that before.
Usually when building a scene like this, I start out by placing the rocks. I sort of look at the lay of the land, which is generated first, and then I try and pick out spots where a rock might naturally occur. I've got this big one here. So, I would just take a big rock like this and plop it down, sink it to an appropriate height, and then I'll go and add like little satellite rocks around it to try and create a feel that there's some natural erosion going on. Came out looking for source textures for some of the surfaces in the game, specifically terrain textures and like pictures of the ground, things like that. It's really tough to find images like that online, for those purposes anyway. With a rock, a lot of the visual impact is going to boil down from the texturing, from the coloration in it, and then using like shader techniques to try and get the shine and sheen and the cragginess to it, like how the lighting splays across it. This color and texture is perfect for some of the textures that we were trying to recreate in the game. I mean, obviously the moss in general is mostly green, but there's lots of other little details here that really help make the textures more believable. There's lots of other little browns in here, lots of little highlights in the green, and just other little random bits of nature. I've always obsessed over natural foliage and just greenery in games in general. For some reason, I think that's really cool. It's just not something that you normally see, and I definitely think it's a fun environment in a game to play in. You think about all the leaves individually, they're probably pretty close to the same color, but you see them all in a scene like this, there's so much contrast and play of light. In the foreground here is an example of some of our grass that we have in the game. So we've got some ivy in here and some tall grass. Further on, I think there's some sort of generic forest weed types of plants. They really add a sense of movement and life. Like, it really makes the ground feel much more organic than this flat, textured surface might. There's kind of a quiet solitude about it, where there may be lots of cool and interesting things going on within the game, but you can sort of know that it's in its own little pocket, so to speak. It's kind of isolated from reality around you. It's really nice when they're cluttered with lots of interesting things that fool you for a second into thinking that you're in a real world.
Well, it's Thursday now, Thursday morning, and E3 starts next Wednesday. However, the computers need to be shipped out and they need to arrive there by next Monday. So we basically have until tomorrow afternoon before we basically have to stop work. The machines get packed up and they get shipped off.
We're on schedule. It's taken all late nights, deep into the mornings the last 2 weeks, but looks good, looks good. Okay, I'm a little under the weather, so I'm going to try to get through this, but if my voice dies, bear with me. We built Oblivion from day one to be a next-generation game for both the PC and the Xbox 360. We've always tried to make our worlds come alive visually, but Oblivion takes this to new levels. Our artists have painstakingly modeled over 9,000 objects. There are 9 main cities in the game and dozens of smaller settlements, Over 1,000 NPCs live in Oblivion, all with their own schedules and jobs.
Good morning.
Oblivion features over 50 hours of recorded dialogue, all lip-synced in real time.
They say the streets run red with blood, and the Daedra will soon overtake the entire city.
The voices fill half of the game's DVD.
Please, come on upstairs with me.
I don't know what kind of titanium alloy packing stuff they've got, but whatever it is, I just hope it can take a push out of a plane at 30,000 feet.
He did it!
Now we just need to make sure that works all day.
If you do not have any green buttons, please proceed through the register.
If they don't like it a lot, I'll be really disappointed. It's all about meeting expectations. It could still be like one of the best games there, but if it doesn't meet their expectations...
Time we start?
Oh, right now it's 7:10, and we were supposed to be starting the Microsoft event in 5 minutes, but that's not going to happen. So we're just hanging out, waiting to meet up with some folks, and we go get something to drink, and we'll watch them put our trailer up in front of thousands of people. I mean, I'm really looking forward to it. It's an awful lot of work to get to this point. I mean, we haven't seen it on a freaking movie screen, so we have no idea how it's gonna look. Well, we know it looks really good on a 61-inch TV, but on a movie screen. But if it looks as good as we know it can, and if it's and if the response is really awesome, I mean, I think it'll probably maybe the greatest professional moment of my life.
So how about this? How about a brand new, full-featured, next-generation role-playing game in the launch window? Morrowind was one of the best-selling role-playing games ever on the Xbox. The sequel to this incredible game is called Elder Scrolls 4: Oblivion. It promises to feature one of the largest open-ended worlds ever created for a video game. It also includes thousands of characters that are governed by groundbreaking AI. These characters eat, sleep, and complete tasks all around the clock. And they make their own choices based on what's going on in the world around them. Welcome to the world of Oblivion.
Hi, I'm Todd Howard of Bethesda Softworks, and welcome to our presentation of the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion.
This game looks unbelievable. It actually has trees, unlike Vardenfall.
The whole first level of the game is a prison break. And through your actions, it really determines what kind of character you'll be.
I mean, sometimes I worry that games are going to get so realistic looking that I won't want to play in them because they're too real, and then I might as well just be at home. Only this was a pretty good case for hyper-realism because the forest was gorgeous.
Unbelievable. It's easily the most impressive game that we've seen at E3. It's like with the Radiant AI thing. Yeah. That's always one of my big issues with RPGs is the NPC characters are kind of boring. Like they're just there and you talk to them and they're kind of just like this clunky way of getting information. But it's so much more entertaining to watch like somebody flame their dog.
Oh my God, have you seen our booth? It's off the hook.
Fans of the series, they're gonna go nuts. They're gonna love it.
Morrowind changed my life. I don't know about that.
Maybe it didn't change my life.
Put in
It definitely took away a lot of my hours.
We look back at what people really liked about role-playing in the first place. The setting, the action, the heroism.
When that guy came, I don't know if you've seen it or not, but when the guy came out of that Oblivion portal, that was cool. He was so cool.
excellent little setup there, doing titles that take a long time, that have a distinct story, and they've really resonated with fans over the years.
I totally love the storyline as it is, and like the way it develops is like just so good.
And as you know, if it's an Elder Scrolls game, people are going to go buy it just because.
Hi, I'm Jess Finster, Community Director, and I'm here visiting Bethesda Game Studios, where the team is hard at work on Starfield. I just want to say how grateful we all are for all of the feedback, support, and questions that you've been sharing with us on Reddit, Discord, Twitter. So we wanted to take a moment to answer some of those questions in our new series. So let's get started. First, the thing that we want to know is what inspired Starfield?
Oh, so many things. I think the main ones that I'm going to go back like in time here. Sundog is a big one. Amazing game, kind of like the science fiction game when Ultimas were out. It also had this partialless interface, kind of one of the first games where you're moving objects around and putting them together, but great game where you had your own ship and you could explore around that I loved. Another one, this is a kind of pen and paper role-playing game at the time where D&D was getting popular, is this game Traveler. Traveler was a little more hard science fiction. Other thing there, it's one of the first games I programmed on the Apple II at the time. I really wanted to make a Traveler game. It was also my first time realizing that computers had memory that you could run out of. I can already see the comments, people saying, you've been running computers out of memory for 40 years now, but that's an easy comment, everybody. You can do better. But those are the big ones, hearkening back to those old role-playing games that we loved, and hey, can we pull off something like this with today's computers and consoles, et cetera?
You mentioned hard space or hard sci-fi, and I know that that's one of the things that's been hotly debated in the community. Is Starfield considered a hard sci-fi?
I never quite know, because that's always like, what do they think it is if you say yes or no?
Yeah, that's more like
I
it.
think it is more hard to us, hard science fiction, where you can draw that line from, okay, here's how man explored space, and you can even look at our ships and say, all right, that has some visual identity back to that. But it's a trap question because it's a video game, right? Like a hard science fiction video game would be you die in space cold. A good example, we were really into fuel and how the gravity drive works, and I'm reading papers on quantum physics and bending space in front of you. You don't actually warp, you bend the space, you bring the space towards you. And so we were playing that, and it became very punitive to the player. Your ship would run out of fuel, and the game would just stop. You just want to get back to what you're doing, so we've recently changed it where the fuel in your ship and the grav drive limits how far you could go at once, but it doesn't run out of fuel. Maybe there'll be an update or a mod that allows that, but that's what we're doing now.
Constellation members are excited about the character customization and the traits in the game. Can you talk more about what players will experience with the traits?
I love our trait list. It's super fun. But each one obviously comes with some sort of negative as well. And we have a way in the game, kind of an activity or quest you can do to remove that trait, as opposed to, don't like my character, I want to start over. Each of them are something that you can solve that removes the entire trait for the rest of your playthrough.
The last question, we have speech checks and dialogue that reflect your character build. Do you want to expand upon that at all?
Yeah, look, we've done a lot of different dialogue systems. We've gone back to kind of I'll call it a classic Bethesda style dialogue with, you're looking at the character and how they emote. You have a series of choices there. The scope of the game, the amount of content we're making is a bit more than we've done before in terms of quests and things like that, but the depth in some of this stuff with the dialogue, we just passed 250,000 lines. And so that's a lot of dialogue, but we've gone through it and the impact is really there. And that includes my favorite speech persuasion system.
You're not talking us out of this score.
It feels like it's part of the dialogue, but you're spending points to persuade them.
You willing to give up the ship? Just like that?
It feels natural, not like I've entered some other mode where I'm not doing regular dialogue. It's just I'm in this mode of persuading you to get what I want.
Having a way with words might prove useful.
That's it. That's all the questions that I had for today.
Yeah, this has been great. Everybody out there, keep it coming. We do really read it all, and also we look forward to showing you more of the game in the future as well.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. That's all we have for today, but don't forget you can submit your questions at the hashtag below. See you later.
So I started here right after Arena came out. So I wasn't here during the genesis of what the Elder Scrolls is. But what it aims to be then and now is this wide open role play. It actually started as a gladiatorial combat game, which is where the name Arena comes from. And there were teams, and then there was a map added where you go to different cities, and then, okay, you can walk around the cities. And it slowly became this. The name The Blades that we use in the game was one of the main names of one of the gladiator teams. Makes them a little less sexy now. They're just gladiators, not these dragon hunters from thousands of years ago. But some of the games at the time that inspired it, some of them are people don't remember anymore as well, like Darklands from Microprose, Legends of Valor, an SSI game, which where you could had a very detailed town. The whole game I think was in a town. Is really good. Ultima Underworld, the idea being, what if there was Ultima Underworld on a epic scale? And Arena, to this day, is one of my favorite games. Partly because I didn't work on it originally, I think, so I can see it differently. But it's very elegant in how it presents how big the world is. Daggerfall then brings the first one I helped on. The character yourself to get a lot more depth. That's the one that adds the skill system and changes the whole paradigm from XP to, you will get better at what you do as you do it. And I think that was a real moment for the series that has kind of defined how you play the games now. But like I was saying, we go at it each time with, let's not just look at the last one and say, what does it need? I think most people, most fans will look at it and say, it's great, you should change the leveling, add spears, add crossbows, add this, and add some more races. And I usually approach it from, well, I want to know what skills are superfluous, that we should fold into something else to make the choice of what your character is more meaningful, make that choice more meaningful, and how are the races different? I think 10 races is enough. How is playing an orc different than playing a high elf, or those kind of things? Because I think the basic nut of the game, which is I'm going to make the person I want to be, and then explore this world that is very real to me at the time I'm playing it, and fantastical. How does that game react to what I'm going to do? And give me an outlet for whatever kind of character I want to play, and kind of that adolescent power fantasy of what I thought I was doing when I played Dungeons and Dragons, and what I thought I was doing when I played Ultima, and what we can do with technology. It seems like every time we do, because there's this gap between them, we do have the ability to reboot it again and present that stuff, even though it's your first person, you have a sword, you're smacking things. It feels new again, just in how it looks, how it's presented, what the mechanics are. I think the series getting popular was, in one hand it's a gradual growth. On the other hand, there are jumps because of these big gaps between the games. I think there's 6 years between Daggerfall and Morrowind, so it obviously takes a big jump there. But there was, not much of the classic Elder Scrolls out between those time periods. Oblivion really hit another level of people playing it and responding to it. That when that came out, you could feel it. There's this one forum I go to a lot, the NeoGAF forum for gaming, and they had a thread on Oblivion, and I think I forget how many views it got, but it was like an order of magnitude higher than any other thread. Where I was used to in Morrowind going to a forum, which is usually our own, and I could sit there and I could probably read most comments that our fans were posting about the game. And when it came to Oblivion, it was too much information. I couldn't even comprehend it. So that it did become a
So
little
that's like
bit
a shaft.
okay, what problems is the game? Like trying to find the actual problems. Eventually that stuff bubbles to the top, but initially it was hard to get a read on how do they really feel about the game. I can tell you a lot of people are playing it, and in general they seem to like it. That was the time where you felt it go beyond the people who were classically interested in that kind of game. And Lord of the Rings had come out, you know, between that gap, right around the end of Morrowind to then Oblivion. Fantasy became a popular in a different way again, which I think helped as well. If you look at the Elder Scrolls lore, it does have an authenticity and uniqueness to it throughout the games, and that's been a progression over the games. Sometimes we'll make a conscious decision to make something, oh, this has been done this way, we have to do it differently. I really like how we treat our dwarves, that they used to be elves and they're long gone. You see their ruins, but you don't know quite what happened to them. Any theories about what happened are all in game speak. It's one thing we're careful about is any of the lore and everything written is in the voice of these narrators that are in the world, so they could be wrong and you get conflicting reports. But there are things that we have a different take on. Dragons, you know, we have a very different take on. So on one hand, we like fantasy and we like dragons, something we've always wanted to see done really well in a game. And so we're trying that now. But the way they, you know, classically you have a dragon and he breathes fire. Well, now our dragons are speaking this ancient language that are this dragon language that creates fire or creates cold or creates wind or slows time. Things like that makes them pretty unique. So we'll take something, you know, like that and twist it a bit where it's still familiar to somebody, but it does have its own uniqueness to being Elder Scrolls and to the culture and lore of Elder Scrolls. And one of the things that helps with Skyrim is that it does have a really nice culture to it, while still being something that people look at and it suspends their disbelief, like, well, this feels like, you know, a place that I'm comfortable in, I understand it. It has some classic things to it, but then you see these, you know, epic cities that have been carved into mountains by dwarves long ago, these guys have moved into, and when you inspect it with your eye, it has this history to it that you don't quite understand. But at first glance, it feels like just a well-done classic fantasy city. I think one of the things that sets us apart, and it might be our PC heritage, is we still try a lot of crazy stuff that sometimes we shouldn't try, and we'll have some successes with that, we'll have some failures with that. We think very big. We will then back our way into making that really playable. So we have these big grand ideas, but we make the minute-to-minute just feel good in your hands and make it fun and make it rewarding, so that, because we play a lot of games, you know, I think you were known for doing role-playing games, but
what the hell? It's
huge. Mix of things. I play a lot of sports games. I play racing games. I prefer role-playing and adventure games, but I play action games, and all of that stuff, and all the guys do, filters into what we're doing. So there's, at this base level, we walk this line between an action game and an adventure game and a role-playing game. We don't focus too much on, well, you would do it this way in a role-playing game. We do what feels right to us, and to make the, you know, 20-minute activity of going into a dungeon just very, very playable, despite all of the, you can go to town and people can talk to you and all of that. So I think those two things together, the minute-to-minute, it feels good like a game, and the big idea and the just, you know, how grand all of that is, those two things together I think are what set us apart. So if someone says, you know, they see Bethesda Game Studios in the box, they sort of know, like, there's going to be a big crazy thing in there, and I don't know if it's going to work great, but it's going to be big and crazy and cool in some respect.
Okay, this next section is going to require a lot of like finagling and work to make it really look good and authentic, especially since this is fucking huge. You know, these walls I could probably just, I suppose I'm focusing a little too much on oh my goodness. That's Incognito Cookie. What's up, man? Thanks for the subscription. I appreciate you. But yeah, I think I'm focusing a little bit too much on like snapping tools together. I really just need to focus on making it look authentic. Man, Cookie, it's been a while. A little while. Yeah, I almost joined the Discord the other day, but then people started leaving. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I might as well not even join now. All right, what the heck? Okay, that just... Well, we can... Okay. I suppose we could figure out some ways, like some rocks and boulders to make that look better. First of all, it needs to look better. Okay. Honestly, that's a pretty good starting point. Yeah, I'm focused too much on, like, having the cave pieces, like, match up. Because the previous cave I thought was like, oh, it's a little small. But this is, like, huge. Like, way too big. So, but this one needs to be pretty big. Because we're going to have 2 enemies here. Yeah, there's going to be 2 enemies, like 2 large enemies here. But, okay. I think I'm done in the creation kit today. We're 6 minutes to 5. We're actually going to spend our last 6 minutes just kind of, hello. Anyways, we're going to spend like the last 6 minutes here. So everybody is aware, if you don't know already, this is where I want to go work. You know, this is what the dream is. This is what I'm working every day for.
Welcome to Bethesda Game Studios. I'm Todd Howard. I'm going to give you guys a tour of our new studio here in Rockville, Maryland.
I know it looks very different now.
This is our lounge. Watch TV, play games.
This video is like 12 years old at this point. I do know their studio looks much different now.
Drinks, coffee over here. We also have a whole bunch of the games, obviously, we've done over the years at Bethesda Game Studios, all the way back to Gridiron way down here, which was 86, the Gretzky series, all the Terminator games, of course. The Elder Scrolls kind of dominates this, and then Fallout 3,
Morrowind's my favorite.
latest stuff. This is kind of fun for the whole team, even newer people to come in and see these old boxes.
Morrowind is my all-time favorite.
As far as the stuff we did, 20 plus years ago. This is cool. This is a prop this guy made. He was on the internet, and he made one and posted it, and we contacted him and said, you got to make one of those for us. So this is the laser rifle from Fallout 3, and it's absolutely perfect. So we're headed to our programming area. We're separated up here by departments. We're one big team of about 100 people, and everybody's really focused on
Fallout 3
one
is also one of
big
my
game
favorites.
at a time.
Just barely behind Morrowind, just barely.
Talk to a programmer today. So this is an old compact Presario that we use to still play our old games
like on the floppy
here.
disks.
So once in a while you'll find somebody.
Well, I mean, that's not really how floppy disks work, but
So we're still in the tech area. This
like
is one
that's
of the
why
places
they
where
play it on
we'll
there.
do a lot of our design with, literally stand around here and figure out a problem. We like to stand and do it. Keeps the meeting short, keeps us productive. It's very visual for the whole group who's implementing features to see. They'll write questions on the board, and someone like me will come by and answer them, or somebody else. And we can, prototype a feature, get it in the game really fast, change it up on the whiteboard. Because ultimately, the documentation doesn't matter. It's what's in the game that matters. This is a bunch of our level designers putting together areas for the game.
That's where I want to be.
Working in our tool, the creation kit.
It's literally the exact spot that I want to be. Like, now, like, hold on, look back. Like, level design is like exactly where I want to be.
Putting together areas for.
See, like, look at this. Replace this guy with me, please. But yeah, I mean, like, he's got like an Xbox controller and all that stuff. It's definitely, it looks like a pretty simplistic workspace, but I would deck it out with like posters and shit. I would.
And you'll see them working in our tool, the.
And obviously the whiteboards and stuff.
It's a good working space in that everybody has their own private space they can use, and lots of it, but it's also very, very open. We've been in this building for 20 years. We used to be in the basement, which you'll see later. That's where the dev team was. And now we've grown big enough that now we've taken over the whole second floor. Really, really cool space to make games in.
I'm sure.
So now we're in the world art area, and this is something cool we have, which is a big dry erase sticker of the game map. And we use this to track where various locations are, where we are in production with it. We'll assign areas to people, and really, really big game world. And this is a cool visual way for us to keep track of it. You can see some of the latest concept art up here.
Bob Ross.
This is how specific we are. We have to detail even the meat of all of the animals for when you loot them.
See, it's that kind of level of detail. So, like, I know Bethesda gets a lot of flack, and I think they get a lot of flack because they try new stuff. Like Fallout 76 was something like new. And people are like, oh man, it sucked. It was buggy. It was trash. And they knew it. They're like, yeah, this wasn't our best title because it was something different and it just didn't launch real well. But if you go play Fallout 76 now, it's actually pretty solid, pretty rock solid. But the thing I love about Bethesda so much is how much level of detail they put in their concept. Like when you detail the levels of the meat, that's how you get so many different unique types of like meat, for example, and enemies and levels and stuff like
here
that.
We have Mark Lampert, our audio director. Genius,
Mark Lampert is
in our sound
awesome.
studio. We have our own recording booth. We do it all here. So this is our screening room. This is where we'll have department meetings, and really, really cool place to take a look at the game. We'll look at new games that come out and kind of break them down, see what people like about them, have a group discussion on what works in the other games that are out there. We're going to head into the
concept art pit.
Nice big space where we can have lots of meetings and discuss what the game's going to look like and how it's going to feel, and see what crazy ideas Ray has come up with this week. So over here we have Matt Kilman, our video producer extraordinaire. People kept bothering him, so I had to make this sign. And he does all our trailer work, all the videos, the actual video stuff that's really edited nice in the game. We're now down in the basement of the building, where we used to be. We now have a big fitness center down here, which is it's pretty amazing.
It's
for
badass.
our size. And some of the guys do karate and kickboxing.
And I would do that too. Like,
to train.
they had like a kickboxing club.
It has the interview process.
I would so
always
be
like
into
to
that.
Imagine one of these guys is applying for a job, and fighting is part of it. You must win your position. The one guy who's really, really good, he's our lead combat animator. And he fights for real. He fights in bouts people go and watch. I watch my arguments with him.
I know he still does stuff.
So these were used for some marketing things for...
I've seen him in a recent interview.
And I believe our marketing group got them from this Hollywood prop studio. And they said, well, they've been used before. And then I was watching Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, which I don't plan on watching again.
Watch it again, Todd. You do not give it enough credit. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, in my opinion, is just as good as The Last Crusade. And this might be because I was a little bit late to the Indiana Jones party, but I personally like the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull better than The Last Crusade. Only barely. Only barely. Raiders of the Lost Ark is still the best. Still number one. Raiders of the Lost Ark is the best Indiana Jones movie. But Crystal Skull, to me, is just barely better than The Last Crusade, mostly because it was kind of the first one I was introduced to, and I'm like into aliens, like UFOs and shit. So, I mean, I was really into Crystal Skull, and it reminded me so much of like Raiders and The Last Crusade. It felt very Indiana Jones to me. So I don't know why I get so much flack. Temple of Doom, I did not like. I did not like the damsel in distress. It felt, even though it was long, it felt like a short movie because it wasn't like exploring a lot of areas. And it just wasn't really the type of environment or vibe that I enjoyed, especially in Indiana Jones. So, I mean, I didn't like Temple of Doom, but The Last Crusade, like the first, so like Raiders, Last Crusade, Crystal Skull, all very good.
But this is in the movie where they blow the town up. I was watching the movie and I said, that's our Fallout lady. So now I have an Indiana Jones actual prop. This is our big theater. This is where we'll have team meetings. So this theater seats the entire team, about 150 people. I bought that Gauntlet 2 machine, I think back in 95, and it's still there.
Who's going to take it?
So for about 15 years at Bethesda, we've had our own chef.
This is the reason I want to work there. No, I mean, it's a great perk. Like, I've always loved when workplaces have like kitchens and whatnot. And yeah, I'm sure they, pay for their food. And if they don't, if it's like free lunches and dinners because it's like a perk of working there, then that's even better. But even if they pay for it, it's like that shit looks fucking baller. I would love to have like a lunch or a dinner like that, like dinner in crunch time, but I'd love to have like lunches like that. It'd be very healthy and delicious.
Like the coolest part of our company, and it's grown. So
kind of just looking. I don't see like a register or anything. And I don't really see prices. Maybe it is free. I mean, if it is, good for them.
This is our kitchen. We have our own chef. He cooks us lunch every day. He'll cook us dinners or breakfast during crunch time. Say hi to Kenny McDonald. He's the most popular guy in Bethesda.
Oh, maybe they do. Maybe that does kind of count. Okay, so I do see it, that computer is kind of like a register thing. Maybe they have like meal cards or something, or they have like a habit where they deduct it from your paycheck. That'd be cool. I did work at a place that had like a kitchen and whatnot. It was an insurance company, and they had it to where, I don't know if they had it to where you could deduct lunches from your paycheck, but you could deduct like things like drinks and whatnot from your paycheck. Or maybe you had a card, like you could scan a card and it would deduct it from your paycheck. I think it was. But yeah, I mean, like if they implement that, that's pretty cool. I like that.
The history, right there. He feeds us and keeps us happy. So that's our tour of Bethesda Game Studios. Hope you all liked the quick look at how we spend our day. Thanks.
But yeah, all right, folks. Well, I did a full 8 to 5. And I mean, first of all, I don't know what the normal work schedule is for not only game developers, but for a Bethesda Game Studio developer. I know that that's not an everyday thing because obviously there's crunch times, there's schedules they got to stick to, especially when it comes to like events like their direct that's coming up in a couple weeks, like the Xbox/Starfield direct that's coming up. And I'm very much looking forward to watching. But I kind of just wanted to sit down and do like a full work day And first of all, we got so much done. We got pretty much like the skeletal builds of basically this next level that we're doing is split into 4 sections, and we have like the first 3 sections done for what I call the skeletal build. So there's like, let me explain. There's like the shell, which is, you know, the outside of the level that you pretty much build everything in. And then the skeletal build is like all of the bones and whatnot that you put inside that kind of that are pretty much the overall structure. And then after that, you start packing it with clutter, like chests, enemies, stuff like that, light, sounds, and that's kind of the next step. But I want to have the skeletal. Well, I want to have the shell of the 4th section, the 4th and final section. And the skeletal build of the 4th and final section. Ooh, excuse me. Done. Once I do that, then we'll start cluttering everything. We'll clutter from first section of the level to the last section of the level. And once we're done cluttering everything, that portion of the level will be done. And then we'll build the last level, which is like the sanctum. That'll be the smallest level, but it'll you know, have like the boss fight and you know, the exit out and everything. And yeah, it's kind of the general idea. But we did a nice full work day, and I'm tired. Like, truly, that felt like a work day. Not in a bad way, because I feel very accomplished. Had a great time, but I'm hungry. I'm gonna go relax. And yeah, I hope you all had a great, long, fun holiday weekend. I'll be back on Wednesday with, you know, we're going to be continuing the build. And yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this. Probably do more of these in the future on days off that I don't really have anything planned for. You know, but with holidays coming up, I don't know what's going to be like. I'm busy 4th of July, but like, I don't know about Labor Day. I don't know, but like some certain days off, I might just take and do more of these because it's, you know, it's fun and I get a lot of work done. So yeah, we'll be back again Wednesday with more Skyrim game development stuff. And I hope you all have a great night, and I'll see y'all later.